What's going on, everyone? We'll be starting about 2 or 3 minutes at the very most. Excited to see you guys tonight. Big night. A lot of stuff happening. Suraj Patel, candidate in the New York 12th Congressional District, will be coming on. Cathy Reisenwitz will be joining us. Love Cathy. She's the best. And then there's the news. We haven't talked about Roe v. Wade on the stream yet. We haven't streamed since it broke 4 or 5 days ago. We have not streamed since this new bombshell, January 6th, that just happened earlier today. I'll see you guys in about 2 minutes. Oh, and I do need to update the title. Thank you. All right, good evening, shills of all genders. It has been a consequential day in the world. That's all I can say.
Tobin J. Stone gave us a bailout. Colorado pizza is not only real pizza,
No comment.
it is better than NY pizza, because real Americans measure pizza by the pound.
No comment. Colorado pizza is one of those abominations that's like taller than it is thick. But I do gotta say, I think Tobin is one of our leading. Actually, Tobin is not leading this month. Tobin is subscribed at tier 1, but he has not done the most gifted subs. We got one more stream before you can get those gifted subs in. Whoever gets the most gets to choose the next emoji. And I think we have a new. We have a new thing. We have a new emoji. It's finally approved. So I don't know if you guys can see that in chat. But yeah, huge news.
Mr. Kowalski Woodblock gave us a bailout. Hello, I'm watching this while in a Zoom school class until 9:20 p.m. Will it go longer than that?
It will. We are going to be going quite late tonight, honestly, I think. So let me tell you guys the schedule. Let me tell you what the schedule is. And you let me know, by the way, if the background music is too loud or whatever. I'm always still experimenting with that. Always still experimenting with like how to set the levels to background music. But 8 p.m., Suraj Patel is joining us. Suraj is a candidate for Congress, Democratic primary candidate in the New York 12th district. That's the district I live in. It's Midtown. It's Hell's Kitchen, baby. So Suraj is joining us. Suraj is running against both Jerry Nadler and Carolyn Maloney. If you've heard about that district, where two 30-year incumbents are having to run against each other, Suraj is running against both of them. He primaried Maloney last time, and he only lost by 3 points. He came pretty damn close. And so now he's primarying Maloney and Nadler. We're talking to him. That's 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's coming up in just about 25 minutes. After that, at 9 p.m. Eastern time, we're talking with Cathy Reisenwitz. Cathy is a advocate for sex work policy and for sex workers generally. She has a lot of really good takes about women's rights, women's issues, and all the policies there. I don't want to simplify her because she's actually got a lot of good takes about a lot of stuff. But she's probably best known for her sex work advocacy and just women's rights in general. So Cathy is coming on the stream at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be talking about Roe v. Wade, because obviously Roe is dead, and it's something we need to discuss. And then after that, along the way, we're going to be talking about the massive revelations that have been taking place about the January 6th bombshells that have dropped, this new star witness that happened. And, there's just a lot of news to discuss. We got to discuss Roe. We got to discuss the January 6th stuff. After that, it's primary night. There's primaries going on all around the country. In New York, I think in Colorado, maybe in Oregon. There's primaries going on all across. So we might stay on stream for a little while and like watch some primary results come in. We'll see. I don't know how quickly they're going to come in, but we'll see. We'll see. So, yeah, big night, guys. Big night, guys. Why did you think I lived in DC? I don't know. The Neoliberal Project is based out of DC. The other full-time employees live there, but I'm just a New York guy. So, there you go. But a big night. Crazy night. Thank you guys, by the way. Kowalski, Tobin Stone, thank you for the subs, bits, Twitch Primes, all that stuff. As always, if you have Amazon Prime, Jeff Bezos will give you $5. You can give it to us. Amazon Prime leads to Twitch Prime, leads to money in our pocket. So, give us all your money. Relay is reckless, thank you.
Relay is reckless cheered. X100.
Appreciate you. The other thing we do is whoever's the leading shill at the... you can look at that leaderboard, I think it's above chat. Whoever the leading shill is each month gets to choose a new emoji. The reason we have this incredibly based seal emoji is because Mike was the leading one in the previous month. So he chose a bouncing seal emoji. Maybe it's Relay next time. Maybe it's Kowalski. They get to choose whatever the next emoji is. So, all right. So that's the plan. We've got about 20 minutes until Suraj Patel joins us. Until then, I don't know. I guess we should talk about some of the January 6th stuff. It's absolutely wild what's going on here. So let me see if I can pull up some of this stuff. Let's see if we can pull up some of this stuff. We got about 20 minutes until Suraj joins us, and I'm curious what Suraj, like, I'm kind of just going to be asking Suraj, like, not just about his candidacy, about his policy platform, but about, like, what do you think about them trying to overthrow the government? So, it's crazy. Tom, nice to see you. We got a bunch of people in there. We got Relay, we got Tom, we got Dots for Days.
Relay is reckless cheered. X100.
Texas Hokies, good to see you. Dr. Mario Kart, glad you're here. I see Marcos. I see Kowalski. I see Tobin. Relay, thank you.
Relay is reckless cheered. X500.
Can we get some bouncing seals in chat? Get some bouncing seals in chat for Relay, guys. Let's do that. Every bouncing seal tonight is dedicated to Relay. Jacobs is here. Slazak. I think I see Akansomi. Was Ben Axelrod in here? Maybe. I don't know. I see a lot of people. Mizin, what's going on? Traffic, Tom, glad you could join us. We got the whole crowd in here. We got the whole crowd. Seals in chat for Relay. Tom, I don't think we're gonna have time for you tonight. We should chat soon though. Always love chatting with Tom, my map guru, my map muse. Map Muse. That should be the name for your Substack, by the way. Map Muse.
Relay is reckless gave us a bailout.
Relay is like single-handedly trying to get us to like a level 2 hype train. That would be pretty friggin' nice. Relay, really do appreciate you. Really do appreciate it. It helps. It makes my day a little brighter. So all right, let's do this. Let me pull up this. Yeah. Okay, so we've got some stuff here. So one of the things I wanted to look at was just type in Jan 6 hearing. We don't have time to cover this like in depth, but we should talk at least a little bit about this before Suraj gets here. What the hell is going on? There were some ridiculous things. I kind of want to cover them at least very quickly. For those who just joined, the schedule again is 8 p.m. Eastern in about 20 minutes. Suraj Patel is joining us. He's candidate Congress, New York 12. He's running against Jerry Nadler. He's running against Carolyn Maloney. Big underdog, some think, but maybe he's got a shot. 9 p.m. Cathy Reisenwitz is joining. Talk about the fall of Roe v. Wade. Along the way, we're going to be talking about these January 6th revelations. Along the way, we're going to be discussing Roe v. Wade, policy, all the news that's happening in general. And then later tonight, there's primary results. So, yeah. But yeah, Tom, Map Muse. The Muse of Maps. That's a free one. Fisheye is also very good, though. So, Jeremiah, will you have Tim Miller on the podcast for his new book? Does he have a new book? Hold on. I get distracted so easily on stream, but Tim Miller book. Hold on. I'm assuming this is not what you meant. Fart monster and... I'm assuming this is not the book you meant. But I need to send him Tim a note. Tim Miller Bulwark book. Does he have a new book? Why We Did It, a travelogue from the Republican Road to Hell. Ooh, published today. Interesting. One of the strategists behind the 2012 RNC autopsy. Tim Miller conducts his own forensic study on the pungent carcass of the part. That's a nice phrase. The pungent carcass. There's a way with words there. Yeah, I don't know. I need to read the book. I've had Tim Miller on recently. It wouldn't be out of the question to review this, but I feel like we already talked about this kind of. I already did an episode with Tim Miller about like what the hell went wrong with the Republican Party. So I feel like it might be a repeat. But all right, let's watch this real quick and just see some of the stuff that's going on.
I remember leaning against the doorway and saying, "It's an interesting conversation with Rudy, Mark. Sounds like we're going to go to the Capitol." He didn't look up from his phone and said something to the effect of, "There's a lot going on, Cass, but I don't know. Things might get real bad on January 6th. When we were in the offstage announced tent, I was part of a conversation. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away." Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, "Please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen."
God damn. The one thing I feel like you can tell from her voice and her body language is that like I don't know what the right word is. It's not reluctance, but like she's not happy to be there. Like she's not enthusiastic about this. She's not like rah, I'm gonna go stomp on everybody's neck. She seems like she's there because she feels like she has to be. Like and I don't mean like she's being coerced. I don't mean like she's a bad person, but like she's somebody who like you can tell from her tone of voice and how softly she's speaking that like she regrets that like this is happening. That what's the right phrase here? She thinks she's like stunned that she has to be in this position. Like obviously she's doing something brave by doing this, but like clearly she is not like some resistance lib. Like I don't know. Let's keep watching.
And do you remember which crimes Mr. Cipollone was concerned with?
In the days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or
also just this phrase, like, what did she say?
And do you remember?
Hold on, what is the phrase?
Capitol, Cassidy, keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if
They literally knew what was happening. They knew what was happening to the degree that they said, we're going to get charged with every crime imaginable. That was an actual conversation that happened. Jesus Christ. Like, good
we
Lord.
make that movement happen.
And do you remember which crimes Mr. Cipollone was concerned with?
Good Lord,
In the
man.
days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or defrauding the electoral count. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now."
Like, just, you know what her tone of voice is? Her tone of voice is the thing. It's that tone of voice where you're doing something because you know it's the right thing, but it hurts you to do it. You know what I mean? Like if you're, it literally is like if you had to like tell the police that your family member committed a crime. That's what this sounds like. Like, imagine your brother or your sister committed some kind of serious crime and you had to go to the police and they were asking you like, who did this? And you're like, my sister did it. I saw her do it on January 6th, and I saw her say this, and like, it's that tone of voice. Like, you are having to inform on a family member because you know it's the right thing to do, but it really hurts you. That's the vibe I'm getting from this whole thing.
To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel.
This is insane.
Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel, and when Mr. Renato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles. I remember Pat saying something to the effect of,
Jesus.
"Mark, we need to..."
Like, the president is literally fighting with the Secret Service, getting into physical altercations, trying to, like, reach up and, like, Jesus Christ. Like, he's not... That's the other thing, is I think it's underrated the extent to which, like, Trump is not just a buffoon and not just horrible in every way, but that he's also just volatile. I think we can forget that sometimes with how clownish he is, but he's like a volatile, unpredictable child in a lot of ways.
do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, "You heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong."
Did Rudy Giuliani ever suggest that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
He did.
Ms. Hutchison, did White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows ever indicate that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
Mr. Meadows did seek that pardon. Yes, ma'am.
This is a call received by one of our witnesses.
God
Quote,
damn.
"A person let me know you have your deposition tomorrow.
She's incredibly brave.
He wants me to let you know he's thinking about you. He knows you're loyal, and you're going to do the right thing when you go in for your deposition." I think most Americans know that attempting to influence witnesses to testify untruthfully presents very serious concerns.
Good Lord, man. That I don't even think that got into everything. I think there's other things that we missed there. Like, I need to maybe we can Google this real quick, but I heard some story about, like, Trump when he got news that when Trump got news that what's his name, Barr, the Attorney General, was not going to, like, go along with overturning the election. He was not going to say the election was stolen. That Trump, like, literally threw a plate of food against the wall. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Yeah, hold on. Here we've got this. So Trump broke dishes, splattered wall with ketchup during election fit. Also, the fact that Trump eats all his food with ketchup is just such a perfect detail. And, like, what did I say earlier? Trump is just a volatile child. Like you can model him literally as, like, like a 4-year-old Mussolini. Like, take a fascist and then make them mentally about 4 years old. And I feel like that's a decent model of how Donald Trump actually works in reality. I haven't seen confirmation it was chicken tendies. You know what? I choose to believe that it was chicken tendies with ketchup. That's what I want to believe. So, yeah. Top White House aide testified before Congress that an irate President Donald Trump created a mess of shattered dishes and splattered ketchup in the West Wing. Hutchinson let's read this. I remember hearing noise coming from down the hallway, so I poked my head out of the office, and I saw the valet walking towards our office. He had said, "Get the chief down to the dining room. The president wants him." So Mark Meadows went down to the dining room and came back to the office a few minutes later. After Mark had returned, I left the office and went down to the dining room, and I noticed that the door was propped open and the valet was inside the dining room changing the tablecloth off the table. He motioned for me to come in and pointed towards the front of the room near the fireplace mantel on the TV, where I first noticed there was ketchup dripping down the wall and there was a shattered porcelain plate on the floor. The valet had articulated that the president was extremely angry at the attorney general's interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall, which was causing them to have to clean up. So I grabbed a towel and started wiping the ketchup off of the wall to help the valet out. And he said something to the effect of, "He's really ticked off about this, so I would stay clear of him for right now. He's really, really ticked off about this right now." Hutchinson added that Trump had angrily flung food and dishes on multiple other occasions. Oh, that's a normal thing for a president to do. And that he sometimes lifted the entire tablecloth to spread his mess. See, that's the child part. The child part is not just that, number one, it's that he has fits where he throws his food. But number two, he throws his food, he decides he's still angry, and he just wants to rub it around. So he just keeps doing shit. Like, that's fucking wild. That's incredible. Jesus. Yeah. I don't know, man. That's wild. All right, so pretty soon here, we're going to have Suraj Patel joining us. So we're going to be doing that very, very shortly. And should be a good time, guys. Should be a good time. Suraj Patel, candidate for, again, New York's 12th congressional district, going to be joining us. The original plan was just to talk about his run, what his policies are, what he believes, why he's running, what he thinks about his chances. We're probably not going to be able to avoid talking about some of these big news items, though. Talking about Roe v. Wade, talking about, talking about these revelations. Suraj is a big YIMBY, not NIMBY, I'm sorry. He's extremely, extremely YIMBY. I think he's going to be happy to take questions from chat. If you guys have questions for him, just show you real quick. Suraj Patel Ballotpedia. What are his results in the past elections? So he ran in 2020 against Carolyn Maloney. And again, Carolyn Maloney is in a New York City district that is literally 84 to 16 or something like that. You know, this is not a close district. But when she got primaried in 2020, she won her primary by not very much, 42 to 39, 3.5 points. So Suraj Patel came really close last time. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens this time. I'm gonna figure out what's going on here, and we will give me 1 second, and we will bring Suraj on very quickly. Dr. Jackson, H.M. Pohl, Halliburton, glad to see you. Glad everybody's here. Thomas Bays, Dabuda, we got the whole crowd in. All right, let's see if we can't figure this one out. 1 second, guys. All right. Should be having Suraj join in just a few minutes. Give us just a few minutes and should hopefully be happening. What is this? Jesus. His music got like real clubby real fast. Integral, nice to see you. Dr. Econ here himself. The plan for tonight, we've been talking about January 6th. We don't have much time to talk about it. We may talk about it a little bit more. Suraj Patel, congressional candidate, will be joining in just a minute or two. And then we have Cathy Reisenwitz joining at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about Roe v. Wade. After that, we're just going to continue talking about Roe, continue talking about the January 6th bombshells, and then it's primary night. We also have primaries going on all around the country, so we're going to be keeping an eye on those. So all kinds of stuff to talk about tonight. Let me make sure Suraj is not messaging me at the moment. Sometimes that happens. One big thing that holds YIMBY back is public transportation costs. Everybody talks about light rail, but it's not cost effective for most locations, and buses suck. I mean, look, buses are actually great. The problem is that America does them terribly. There's places that have really good buses, and buses are fine as long as they're well done. The problem is America has buses that just suck. With buses, what you need are buses that come super reliably, super often. You need buses there every 5 to 10 minutes. Like, it's a big, big issue that America has. Most cities have like a bus system where a bus comes every 30 minutes to each stop, or a bus comes every 45 minutes or every hour or so. Like, it makes nobody want to use buses. If you have a bus system that is super reliable, buses are showing up all the time, where you don't have to plan it, then people will use it. I think this is in general a rule of this is in general kind of a rule of public transportation. If people have to plan their trips, then it's not going to work. If you have to plan, and actually, here we go, guys. Give me 1 second, and we are going to be joining. This is it. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you, Suraj?
I'm doing great. We had election day today, so we were out since 7 in the morning just canvassing poll sites because it was the governor's election. So pretty good, though.
All right. Well, we've got you on stream. We are live right now, so I'm going to pull you up now. They're hearing you. They're not seeing you, but I'm about to switch that. So let's get you on the stream. Hold on 1 second.
Heck yeah.
All right, here we go. Here we go. I think we should be live. There we go. Excellent. All right, so stream, I would like you to meet Suraj Patel. Suraj, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. Again, thank you for having me and letting me join. This is my first Twitch, so thank you for inviting me to this platform. Yeah, my name's Suraj Patel. I'm a first-generation American. I'm a professor at NYU at business school, a lawyer by training. I work for President Obama, and I'm running for U.S. Congress in New York City in an incredibly intense primary election between two career politicians, two incumbents who've been in office for a combined 60 years. And why am I running? It's, there are some times that call for a clean break from the past, a breaking point. This country requires, this city needs, I'm in New York City, a new generation of practical, pragmatic, progressive leaders who want to roll up their sleeves and start to tackle the root causes, not the symptoms, the root causes of some of our problems. And, the two people I'm running against happen to be incumbents because they gerrymandered their own districts. They've taken $10 million of PAC money in the last decade, and they haven't offered any new solutions. And one thing we've learned in the last couple of weeks is that 1990s Democrats have lost almost every major battle in the last few years to Republicans, from gun control to abortion rights to climate change to immigration to civil rights to criminal justice reform. I mean, we are on a losing streak that's unparalleled. And the way to win it back, in my opinion, is to lead, and lead with ideas and energy and with a new economic argument to win back this country. Now, what do I mean by that? So when I worked for President Obama, we had 60 U.S. senators that were Democrats. I'm talking about Montana, North Dakota, Nebraska, Arkansas, Alaska, Indiana, 2 from Ohio, 2 from Wisconsin. I mean, these are unfathomable thoughts today, 12 years ago to now. And one of the reasons we did is because we offered, during the financial crisis, in the campaign, a new economic argument to make people's lives better on a day-to-day basis. Today I was out all day long greeting voters across New York City who were voting in the governor's primary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying to people, people still vote on things that affect them on a day-to-day basis more than anything else. We can't win the country back if we don't provide baby formula.
So I want to jump in right there, because there's an argument that I've seen recently. I think maybe there's a few people who've talked about this. Matt Iglesias might have been one, that progressives remember the Obama administration and specifically the Obama campaign in the wrong way. And he made the argument that Obama actually did a lot of pandering towards the center, basically. That just straight up, if you want to win elections in America, you have to win the center. And we, now like to, lionize President Obama because he was a successful 2-term president. But that people forget that in 2008, that he, and in 2012, he did a lot of triangulating himself towards kind of a regular Joe American kind of point of view in a lot of ways. Do you think that's accurate, or do you think that that's an oversimplification, or what's your view there?
Yeah. Well, look, I think that it's in my nature and always has been. The idea, you call it pandering, or Matt might call it pandering.
Yeah,
but
I mean, Matt's a pundit, so he can be very blunt, right?
I call it persuasion. And that the point of politics is persuasion. It is the art of persuasion. It is finding a single beachhead, a single common ground, and attaching yourself to it, and then growing from there. What we've done in the last 2, 4, 6 years, it seems to me, and if you get on Twitter or something, you'll see it over and over, is the exact opposite. We find a single beachhead, a single thing we disagree with someone on, and then make them irredeemable for everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the recipe to win a majoritarian country or single member district elections where you need 51%. And so we have to get back to the power of politics of persuasion. And what does that mean? Again, it means that acknowledging something like inflation, saying, look, instead of just acting like it's not happening, we have to say inflation is costing American families. But it's not costing American families because we overstimulated the economy. It's costing American families because Russia invasion and COVID and pandemic-induced foreclosures have roiled supply chains across the world. And our 2008 experience is a telling sign. We underdid the stimulus. We ended QE too fast. And so that by 4 years after the recession, we were still at a 9% unemployment rate. It created a lost decade. It created a decade of underinvestment and underbuilding the capacity and supply side of this economy. And we're now paying for that mistake with what looks like engineering another recession to crush the demand side of the economy once again. You wonder about why liberal democracy is attacked around the world. I was just riding the subway down and I was thinking about this. Unrest comes when we don't create enough mobility and wealth creation in this world.
Yep.
And we have underdone that for a decade.
There's a great comment from chat. Bill Clinton said it best when he said progressives have let their persuasion muscle atrophy. I mean, yeah, I can't disagree.
I just don't fundamentally, when I said it was my nature, I'm just not a disagreeable person. I tend to find something in common with everyone because I just don't like sitting around arguing most of the time. I like to find common ground. So here's what I'm saying.
How are you in politics then?
Because, I mean, I think this is the change. This is the big flip we need to make. And it's not a big, I mean, I'm a firm believer that a small change by a large number of people is more impactful than one big change by one person. And so here's where I challenge progressives, liberals, whatever you want to call ourselves. We got to make a small change. The small change is simply to get back to the power of persuasion. Think about it that way. Think about finding that common ground in Beachhead and making an argument that crosses this chasm that we've created. I'm done with Trump. You know, that I don't need more echo chambers. He built plenty. I'm over that. So the race we're running is saying there are 3 people on this ballot. 2 of them represent 60 years of incumbency and a failed approach to safeguarding our rights and to creating prosperity. 1 of them is offering an alternative or a way forward. If these rights, like abortion rights or gun control or the EPA's ability to regulate carbon dioxide emissions, which we don't have a decision on yet today, but I'm terrified of waking up tomorrow morning to read about. If we want to win those back, it took 50 years for those things to erode. If it takes a quarter of that time to win them back, then I'm the only one in this race who has the energy, the stamina, the wherewithal, and the ideas to wage that fight for you.
All right, so for those who don't know New York politics very well or who don't follow primary races very closely, one of the big things that's happened in New York this cycle is that there was kind of this last-minute change of the maps, where we thought the maps were going to be one thing, instead the maps are the other thing, and that's why you're having to tell this story about running against 2 different incumbents. So we're going to get into policy pretty soon, but before we get into the detailed policy questions, I'd love to just know, what was it like? What was it like when the campaign, which you were already planning to primary a 30-year incumbent, when you looked at the new map and you realized, I'm going to have to primary 2 30-year incumbents? Like, what was it like in Patel headquarters right there?
So I would like to bring you guys into the mix here and tell you that this is a comeuppance. I'm an attorney. I've taught gerrymandering. I've taught voting rights, and for a decade I've said that, call me old-fashioned, but voters should choose their politicians and not the other way around. And the voters of New York State in 2014 amended the Constitution to make gerrymandering for incumbency protection and partisanship illegal, unconstitutional. Now, fast forward to last year. I ran against Carolyn Maloney 2 years ago in 2020 in one of the closest primary elections in the country. 3,000 votes separated me and her in a multi-candidate field where she got 42% of the vote and we got 39.5%. And what happened in November was the New York Times reported that as these legislators, these incumbents are drawing their own maps, Maloney specifically angled to cut young and Latino voters out of her district surgically, all the areas that I beat her in. Now, to fill up that area that she cut out, she needed to absorb more Manhattan. And Jerry Nadler gave her his voters from the Upper West Side down through Chelsea in order to save himself his district to be able to name their successors. This is invidious. Backroom deals, gerrymandering for incumbency protection has been the biggest problem with gerrymandering.
This is a New York thing, man. All of New York politics. For people, again, we have people watching from New York, but we have people watching from around the country too. If you don't know New York politics, it is machine politics. New York City politics is very much like it hasn't. It's a little bit better than Tammany Hall, that kind of old, but only a little bit.
Only a little bit. I mean, we really, And so, guys, so the Supreme Court of New York. By the way, I made a bet with my lawyer. I bet they would throw this out, and the only reason the bet didn't happen is because my lawyer also agreed they would throw this out. So the Supreme Court throws out the maps, guys, and they don't even trust the legislator to go back to the drawing board and draw new ones. They assign a special master in Pennsylvania, a professor at Carnegie Mellon, to just draw the maps. What he does is draws, in my opinion, very fair and balanced maps, pitting the Upper East Side of Manhattan and the Upper West Side of Manhattan together into one district. Socioeconomically, it makes sense. They're fairly homogenous culturally, and it is how you would draw a district if you or I or a bunch of experts got
it. It looks a lot more human. It kind of sucks because it hurt. The Democrats are going to lose seats, frankly, and I'm not super happy about that. But it does look like a more sensible district.
And why? And why are the Democrats losing seats? Because people like Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler got too greedy, wanted to name their successors, wanted to treat this thing like an aristocracy, and their greed and these actions led to probably 4, 5, 6 Democratic seats going to swing districts for the next decade, thanks to that. That's what I'm running against. Now, everyone looked at this map, in the outside world and said, oh shit, how is this guy going to run against two incumbents? I was the giddiest person in probably all of Manhattan. And why? Because now I'm running against not just one, but two incumbents, two people who represent the same failed status quo, two people who really represent the culture of no. You see, this city has a $4,000 a month median rental price for apartments as of last week in Manhattan. We have a livability crisis. And part of the reason is because for decades, the reflexive response of politicians like Maloney and Nadler and everyone else has been no. No to new housing, no to new transit, no to new infrastructure. And it has led to a crisis of livability. No to new density zoning, no to multi-layered zoning. And I'm like, guys, you're the problem. And by having two of them, it is now me against the status quo and a system. Not only that, but
so is this kind of how you would? Is this how you would characterize? Because we're transitioning a little bit more into policy now, I guess, away from the kind of general statements about they're old, they're incumbents, they're trying to rig the system.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into you're naming some specific stuff. If they say no, are you the candidate of yes?
Yes. I'm the first yes candidate, probably.
Is there any particular location you would like to say yes in?
You're talking about for density?
I was hoping you would say yes in my backyard, but I
Oh,
was trying
yes,
to tee you up with one.
In fact, the other day, I did get an article in New York, in AM New York, which is like our newspaper here, one of our newspapers here, that said Suraj Patel, the YIMBY candidate, and I'm like, damn right, I'm proud to be a YIMBY candidate, and I've been saying this stuff for years, but I feel like the movement's moment has come, and perhaps it took an 8-9% annual inflation rate for people to realize we got to start saying yes to things, because climate change, housing, livability can't wait, and we can't allow, these like leviathans like NEPA, which had, the National Environmental Protection Act, for anyone who's probably, you probably know. My professor at NYU Law School, Dick Stewart, was one of the architects of NEPA. He was a EPA administrator under George H.W. Bush and someone under the Nixon White House. Two of the greatest environmental presidents we've had, arguably, which is kind of crazy to say today. And he used to joke about how he birthed NEPA and it became a demon. But it's like, it's this thing that we, with all greatest intentions, allowed to get, to get captured and be used to kill projects, kill infrastructure, and frankly, in many cases, kill green energy projects now. And it's kind of wild. So there's a fundamental difference. It's not just, when I say generational change, it's about making a new argument. It isn't about their age. It's about their time in Washington. It's about decades of new thought and innovation and policy making and policy entrepreneurship that has died and withered on the vine because these people refuse to let new leaders and new ideas seep into the system.
I have a question about some of the local stuff, because look, obviously running locally is different than running nationally, but sometimes you still do get national leaders who weigh in on local issues. And one of the things that comes to my mind is that I believe both Nadler and Maloney came out vocally against the Soho rezoning, which again, like, they don't have a say in the Soho rezoning. They're national members of Congress. This is a New York City Council and community boards, and like those kind of people actually matter. But they both came out against it. And number one, that's disappointing that they don't want to upzone Soho. Number two, I'm almost curious, like, why? Why do they even need to take a stance there? Like, what compels them?
I can tell you, again, the comeuppance is amazing, but both thought with their gerrymander that Soho was going to be in their district. That Maloney had, if Nadler had a reason to be against the Soho rezoning, he was using his bully pulpit to wink and nod the NIMBYs, who are loud, vocal voters in New York. And the costs are concentrated, but the benefits are diffuse. And from a public choice perspective, in an 8-10% turnout primary, that's why you have NIMBYism, right? The funny thing, in my opinion, that I'm thrilled about, that I think is hilarious, is that, Maloney had been angling for the map to gain Soho for a few months now, since November. So she's out there vocally against Soho rezoning, even though Soho is not in our district. And then the map comes out and we're like, oh, it's because she wanted Soho and to win it, and so she's preparing the playing field. Well, then with the new map, the judges map, we don't have Soho. So both of my incumbents, I will put the albatross around their necks of the NIMBYism they did. And they're not going to get the benefits of it because Soho's not in the district anyway. And I think that's, again, another poetic piece of justice that's about to happen in our race, which is that you've been in office for 30 years. There must be a reason. And it's because if there are two sides to every issue, that's where you'll find them, Carolyn and Jerry. And I think that, I think that this is a really interesting moment. I read a stat today that the incumbency loss rate after redistricting is significantly higher than a normal year. And that's because of things like this right here.
Yeah.
Because you angled and taken positions that are probably not great, but they were great in a parochial sense. And then that parochial sense advantage goes away.
All right. So we do have a couple questions from chat. Okay. The first thing chat wants to know is about your hair. They say with multiple comments about how you have great hair, calling you handsome. So I don't know. Do you want to tell us about your routine or something? There's serious questions after this, but several people mentioned your hair. So I'll throw it out there.
I don't have much more to say other than
They say it's an impressive swoop, I think was the phrase, but
I use the regular hairspray and just do it. That's what I got for you. I think it's the Indian genes, guys. Find an Indian person.
There you go. The child of immigrant story, right? The next question we have, a little bit more serious, is a messaging question, I guess. User Dabuda asks, have you ever tried selling YIMBYism as small government principles? And there's kind of a general comment about, Democrats are so often like more and more government, more this, more that. And you can debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but would it be useful for Democrats to sell this kind of YIMBY policy as like small government, get out of the way government kind of thing? What do you think about that kind of strategic choice?
I think that's I think it's a very good point, and I think it is part of what I mean by making a new economic argument. You see, NIMBYism, yes, the benefits are concentrated and the costs are diffuse for the NIMBY, from the NIMBY perspective. But from the person who has to go and apply at a zoning board, town board hearing, people who don't have easy access to affordable housing, et cetera, there is this massive sort of gut, knee-jerk, hate the government feeling, because the tip of the spear of the government is like some community board or something that is just killing projects.
If your interaction with the government is just, I have to go through a 3-year process to open up an ice cream shop, then no wonder you're going to hate the government.
Exactly. And so, yes, I totally agree with you that it's a good messaging tactic to say this is what it is. Now, I will also add one thing that I said at your neoliberals meetup, which was, we call ourselves, I guess I'm going to say it too, we call ourselves neoliberals, but we're actually the old liberals. That for time immemorial, the people who have brought this country back from the brink have actually been, frankly, people like Teddy Roosevelt, people like Franklin Roosevelt, new generational supply side leaders like John F. Kennedy or even Lyndon Johnson, who really focused on building, growing, nothing more progressive than growth, on the New Deal, on the progressive era. These are New York leaders who pitched this concept, this sort of inside-outside concept of government, saying it's not supposed to be in the way, it's supposed to pave the way. Mm-hmm. And we're paving the way to the future here. That's progressivism in my opinion.
This is one of the reasons I feel like Elon Musk's whole turn is so disappointing, because Elon Musk has become like a conservative culture war troll at this point, and all he wants to do is like tweet memes about how the left is crazy. But when you say like John F. Kennedy, like what people remember about Kennedy is not any specific policy, because he didn't have a ton, but he had big dreams. He wanted to send a man to the moon. What can you do for your country? It's kind of this attitude of like, we are able to tackle massive challenges as a country. We can do incredible things. That's why the Elon Musk thing is super disappointing, because I look at Musk and I see somebody who actually, let's put a man on Mars. Let's, have this Starlink satellite. Like, he's got great ideas, and I wish we could incorporate that into our politics in like a much healthier way,
Yeah, and I think that there's something very American and powerful about raising the stakes. Raising the stakes to be bigger than you. How do you get somebody to vote? Um, we said at the outset here that people vote on things that matter to them day to day, and they do by and large. But then you're going to have two parties competing in an almost 50-50 way there. So how do you get over the hump? And it is by getting a few folks who might not vote on their day to day because they're voting on something bigger than them and for their children, for the next generation, for the planet, and for justice, for these general myths. I'm a big uh, Yuval Harari fan, Sapiens, and this thing that binds humanity together is the power of myth. And this idea that you build these things bigger, that's what allows us to order society. And I think that that's what JFK and others tap into, is by challenging us to be bigger and more.
All right, so a policy question for you, because today we saw some unexpected bombshell news about what happened leading up to January 6th and on January 6th, and we got a bunch of horrifying new details. And this is kind of a never-ending thing at this point. There's always more and more horrifying details about this. But beyond the salacious stuff, I'm happy to talk about the salacious stuff if you just want to do that. But the more serious question, I think, that comes out of this is, what sort of democracy reforms should we be endorsing, and what sort of democracy and reforms do you endorse? And you hear a lot of things that get tossed out there. You hear about changing the Supreme Court. You hear about changing the Electoral Count Act. You hear about filibuster reform. You hear about just all sorts of different things. So how do you think about this, and are there specific policies that you would vote for when you think about protecting democracy?
Yeah, I mean, this is the reason I got in the race a couple of years ago, and my, I've always said that whenever we've had the opportunity to attack a problem at structural level, we didn't. The biggest mistake I think that we made in 2008 with 60 senators and the wind at our backs is to not take the opportunity to reform our democracy right off the bat, to cut the spigot of corporate money and unfettered access of super PAC money and things like that to elections. It was not to end partisan gerrymandering ahead of the 2010 census and redistricting. We could have done that at national level. And frankly, it was a mistake to not obviously codify Roe. We had ample opportunity over the course of 50 years to codify Roe in multiple times, in multiple ways. And even today, the Women's Health Protection Act should be passing. We should be eliminating the filibuster to do that. The uneasy truth we have lived in this country for a long time is that we have a republic. But by and large, over the last century, in the 19th century and 20th century, the outcomes of the republic were relatively democratic. What we're now seeing is that we have a republic in which the outcomes are increasingly not democratic at all. That even in states where, in Mississippi, which has 38% black population, about 43% Democratic registered voters, you see a legislature that is almost 80% Republican because of gerrymandering down to the county and Senate level. And so you have legislatures and state legislatures and the Senate itself that's imbalanced. So it's already a counter-majoritarian body. And the one thing that was staying out of the way in that regard was the Supreme Court, the world's most counter-majoritarian elitist body. And everyone talks about it. I've seen a lot of people kill me on Twitter from the far right that are attacking me about the founding fathers and all this bullshit they read on some blog somewhere. And I'm like, I'm a lawyer, guys. I studied constitutional law. I studied a lot of constitutional law. And I can tell you that Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson, and anyone you hold up as a hero, is rolling in their grave if they thought that 9 unelected judges for lifetime appointments that are in their 70s and 80s, that were appointed by a Senate that represented 25% of the country's population, and that have hung on and just eviscerated precedent, were able to impose their will on the country. I mean, they were terrified of the Supreme Court. Article 3 was one of the most controversial parts of the Constitution in the first place. So I don't want any populist, pseudo-intellectual, right-wing nut job telling me that the founding fathers would have supported whatever the Supreme Court just did. But here's the Pandora's box they opened. By eviscerating the right of states, the few states that had common sense gun laws, that had the lowest gun violence rates in the country, The 6 states had the lowest gun violence rate in the country just had their right to police guns taken away. The next day, they said that's not in abortion. We go with states' rights, and it is clearly legislation with an extremist minority from the bench with lifetime appointments. And here's the uneasy truth that's breaking. You know, we're now getting to a point where our Democratic or Republic's outcomes are fundamentally undemocratic, both in the legislature, with a 60-vote threshold to pass bills in the Senate on top of an already skewed Senate, combined with a Supreme Court that is legislating decades' rights away from the bench because the Senate can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the underrated parts here is that Congress has become so inept at passing legislation and getting things done that increasingly both, and I'm not going to say it's equal on both sides, but both parties kind of look to the courts to like win their policy battles. And like, frankly, Democrats have gotten a lot of their most important policy wins via the Supreme Court, via Obergefell and Roe v. Wade, and like this. It's a problem that Congress is broken, and we have to rely on the courts to like wage these battles.
And you're right. And some of the things that we don't do is anticipate around the corner. We don't think about the future. We don't think about press our advantage the way Republicans do. In 2004, George W. Bush and Karl Rove utilized a gay marriage referendum in Ohio to gin up right-wing turnout and defeat John Kerry by 80,000 votes, 60,000 votes. Can't remember what it was. But fast forward 10 years when Obergefell came. You couldn't find a Republican under a rock that was telling you that they're going to vote against gay marriage. That day, the next day, you could have codified gay marriage, right? And I think that one of my fundamental problems is that we didn't do that. We didn't do that with Griswold. We didn't do that with Loving. And now, Ed Markey put out a bill to codify these rights, and including Roe, and House leadership is refusing to put it on the House floor. I'm running against 2 House leaders, and the question is, why not put these people on record and play some offense? Why not do a vote-a-rama in the Senate and say we should eliminate the filibuster for these fundamental rights? Now, if they don't have the votes for that, then be like, okay, fine, let's codify Roe. Okay, fine, you get to 48 votes. Or 49 votes maybe, and then you go to the next one. You're like, fine, if you don't want to do that, let's codify Obergefell. And maybe that gets to 55 to 60. There might be 60 votes to codify Obergefell.
I wonder what you think about this. There's one of the takes that I've seen that strikes me as like the most politically savvy thing that I am sure the Democrats will never do. But, rather than say, like, let's just codify Roe, let's start with something really easy. Like, let's, codify that if a woman is a victim of rape or incest, she has a legal right to an abortion in all 50 states.
Yeah,
and again,
that's a great...
don't add a bunch of stuff. Don't make it one of those Democratic things where you pack in 50 things and then Republicans have an excuse to not vote for it. Just that. Make them vote against it.
Single line bills.
Just go one after the other with that. With just very, very like...
Force them to do a filibuster and make this prime time. And put these people on record as opposing a woman who was a victim of rape or incest, or a woman, frankly, whose life is in danger in the 3rd trimester, the 2nd trimester, force them to say, no, we are going to kill you.
Or like the other one I've seen is, pass a bill that says no woman can be prosecuted for seeking an abortion or doing having an abortion. And if either you pass it, or you make them vote against it, like that kind of thing.
And that's certainly what I was getting at with this. If they don't have the 60 votes for Obergefell, we hope that they would have 60 votes for Griswold, which is contraception. Mm-hmm. And if they say no to that, maybe it's Lawrence, which is sodomy or private sexual acts. And if they say no to that, we'll take it all the way to Loving. Can I marry a person that is not my race? And is Ted Cruz or Rand Paul or someone like that going to vote against that? Put them on record or codify it, because I have no idea. I used to say, and just like everyone else, there's no way they'd go there. But this Supreme Court has shown zero reverence for precedent and speed. I mean, it's disgusting.
Yep. No, it's a tough time to be following this stuff. But we do have another question from chat. Not to just move right along from that, but
You're good. It's. I mean, we can't.
yeah. And look, if you have any questions for chat at any point, this can be a two-way street. I don't know if you can see chat,
I
but
can't see stream, so I have no idea who's on there.
yeah, we're on Twitch now. So if you wanted to, you could have somebody pull up Twitch and but they're there. I promise. They're not just the voices in my head. So
I'm in here, so it's fine. It's fine.
but so you mentioned they say the phrase like a new economic message several times. And they wanted to know, what are the top 2 or 3 aspects of that message, like from a policy perspective? What does that mean in a practical sense to bring a new economic message?
The term I've used and published was called the Abundant Society, a economic message that doesn't preach, that preaches creating more, building more, being faster, streamlining growth, construction, development, childcare. Is an abundant society is one that has more, not less, elite college and college admissions by building more universities and more seats. An abundant society is one that has more housing of all kinds, affordable, market rate, to get in a dream scenario, you have a situation in which you have enough market rate housing that it's all affordable, that the concept of affordable housing would go away. In the meanwhile, we have to do both. The abundant society is one that provides basic needs. It incentivizes people right now to in this current supply crisis. It incentivizes and trains truck drivers and people that are causing or industries that are causing the current supply chain shortages and crises as we have them. It contemplates building more infrastructure, building more parks, building more railways, all of which, in a give-get, are streamlined in a way that reduces the interest costs, the project failure rate, the risk of them, and the time, frankly, it takes to build them. We've been lapped. I mean, in my city, the Second Avenue subway was the most expensive subway project in the entire world. It was 90 years late. It goes for 4 stops on the Upper East Side, and it costs $1.8 billion a kilometer to build, 8 times that of Paris, who just built an automated.
It's absolutely absurd.
Subway.
Yeah.
And we passed a $1.3 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's great.
That's going to get us like 2 more miles of subway.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, what are you guys talking about?
You hear a lot of people talking about this these days. Are you familiar with the transit researcher Alon Levy by any chance?
Yeah, I am. Mm-hmm.
Alon is fantastic. Love Alon. And Alon talks about this a lot. But this is, I think Derek Thompson has that idea of the abundance agenda. Ezra Klein talks about this all the time. He talks about we need a liberalism that builds. Sometimes you hear it called like supply side progressivism. But I'm curious if you've heard kind of the flip side of this, which are you familiar with the cost disease socialism argument from
no, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so this came out of Niskanen Center, a think tank we love, kind of a liberal/libertarian think tank, and they're describing kind of this instinct where there's a good that has become more expensive. This happens a lot in society. This happens with housing. It happens with childcare, right? It happens with college. We have something is becoming more expensive, more unaffordable. People are concerned. College, childcare, housing. And the government's response is to subsidize it. We'll give you a cash subsidy, or we'll give you a voucher or something. Here's some money to help pay for
response.
it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Which, and again, it's a human response. You can understand why somebody would do that, but they describe this cycle that they call cost disease socialism, where it leads to, if you have childcare, for instance, and there's only so many people providing childcare, and then you just say, well, the government will pay up to $2,000 for your childcare. That doesn't increase the amount of people who can give childcare. It doesn't address the problem. All it's going to do is lead to this cost spiral. Do you think that the Democratic Party gets stuck in that sometimes?
Yeah, I do fundamentally. I think that I teach about market failures, and the way we teach our class, my business at the class, that saying that It's the first day you talk about, in a perfect market with infinite number of buyers and sellers, perfect information, no network externalities, no externalities whatsoever, no common pool resources, et cetera, et cetera. You get it. You guys get it. That there is no long run profit, but in our economy, there's long run profit. So how does long run profit happen? It's because you are exploiting a market failure. Whether that's a monopoly or a monopsony, whether it's a location, if you're a real estate person, and it's like you have a monopoly on Park Avenue, the Plaza Hotel, 57th and 5th Avenue. You're the monopoly. And you go down 2 blocks, it's going to cost $200-300 cheaper to rent a room. It's not on the park. If you're Apple, we grant a lot of our profit-making entities a monopoly for a long time, arguably way too long of a time, in terms of patent protection and things like that. There is no evidence that our patent lengths cause more innovation. In fact, perhaps there's a lot of evidence, a body of evidence that says it causes less innovation, it causes inventions to be held. Anyway, I'm digressing. The point I'm professing now. But the point is that the job then of the CEO, of the manager at a firm, is to maximize their long run profit and exploit a market failure in a way that is economically, socially, culturally, politically defensible. And where is that line? And then I go into talking about insider trading or practices. So to your point, I'll say that university is a great example. It's a necessity good in many cases. And so they can just ratchet up the cost of tuition over and over and over and over. And, we've got this 10%, upper 10% of America really trying to get in that upper 1% of America. And it causes a stampede towards SAT tutoring and swimming classes and violin and exorbitant.
There are some high schools, I don't know if you know, that I hear stories where at some of these elite high schools, something like 40 to 50% of the senior class has started a nonprofit organization. And look, most of these are like shell organizations, but it's so that they can say, I'm the founder of, Students for America, and because this is apparently what you have to do to get into like an Ivy League place these days.
It's so insane, right? And what we've created is this unrest, and it's manifesting its way into politics and international unrest. That's why I kept saying that we haven't created enough wealth and we haven't created enough growth for people to be happy. Utility is not ordinal, it's cardinal, and people talk like that.
That's a deep nerd cut, by the way. That's
I know, I realize.
Theron J gave us a bailout. Remember that private schools should be banned.
Days. I'm not going to say that on the street too often.
The thing is, I think that's going to play with this crowd, though. I think this crowd is going to enjoy that, the ordinal versus cardinal. But I'm going to take us in another direction real quick. So we're kind of talking very philosophically about a lot of this stuff. And somebody was asked a good question. What are your quick hits? Some of this stuff is going to take a long time to undo, right? We're not going to fix the housing market for at least a decade, even if we take steps right away. But just what are some of the very quick wins that you think we could get on a federal level? We could do this, and we could pass this bill, and that would help at least a little bit in the short run. Do you have any of those? How do we actually build capacity? What are some of the quick wins?
First things first, the Competes Act, which jumpstarts the semiconductor industry in America, and hopefully jumpstarts innovation in a lot of ways, should be filled up with more stuff like climate science and investment, clean energy investment, innovation and research and development to fill in the gap where the private sector doesn't.
And we just actually had Ami Bera on the podcast. It was released today, talking about Compete/USICA, whichever name you want to, Endless Frontier, whichever name you want to call it. But
yeah, exactly.
We're very hopeful
that should have been on Biden's desk in the first 100 days. That has already passed the Senate. I have no idea what the holdup is in the House. Pass the goddamn bill.
The holdup is that, as happens in the House, as I'm sure, I hope you will learn. My hope is that you will learn this impersonally, but everybody attached every one of their favorite, completely unrelated policy things into. So the House bill is a mess, and they're going to have to cut 90% of it to match it to the Senate bill.
Yeah.
It's kind of, the House bill is a grab bag, basically. But
in the short run, pass Competes Act, get it done. It's already passing. and start to innovate in this economy again and have a domestic. It's a national security issue. We now see how these things are going to play out. We're in the first innings of frankly a global battle against autocracy, and we're going to have to start to be serious about that, and have leaders who acknowledge that and are ready to compete, which is why it's called the Competes Act. I believe in that. Repeal the Jones Act. Why are we waiting for maritime vessels to be built in the United States of America and manned by Americans only when we don't really we're not the specialized shipper of the world anymore? And, each time there's a hurricane or earthquake or something in Puerto Rico, people are like, we should talk about this because it's destroying Puerto Rico. And it's like, we should talk about this because it's destroying Puerto Rico, but also because it's bad economics and it's causing snarls in our supply chains and our shipping ability here. And on the same dorky aspect, like there's the Foreign Dredge Act. We can't, dredge deeper harbors and ports in New York and Newark and Long Beach and San Francisco because you must be an American-built and manufactured and manned dredging vessel. I mean, come on, guys. Like, what is this? Mercantilism?
Mm-hmm.
Are we thinking And so there's a few things that are just super simple, quick hitters. But then there's a few things that I think you could go find bipartisan support for.
I'm pulling something up just for the stream. You won't see it, but stream is now looking not at you anymore, but at a tweet you put out, I think just 1 or 2 days ago, saying "Happy Pride, repeal the Jones Act," which I've got to say is one of my favorite tweets that I've ever seen. I feel like it perfectly encapsulates who I am as a person.
Yeah.
It's like happy Pride, support LGBT
the Puerto
people.
Rican pride flag. And I was like, what's the connection here to dorky policy? What can I, what do I believe all the time?
Yeah, right now, and they're seeing you in the rainbow Suraj Patel tank top, and they've got the rainbow flag up there, guys. This is support LGBT folks, repeal the Jones Act. That's my ideology right there. So
this is a Venn diagram of like the perfect politician for some people, and I hope I encapsulated it for you guys. And
someone's saying you should just pull
in my workout routine. I'm happy to share my workout routine, guys.
Someone's saying you should pull it. Jared Polis, governor of Colorado?
Yeah.
He likes to call the Jones Act socialism. It's probably not. I don't know if that's theoretically accurate, but I love it as an attack. The Jones Act is socialism.
I love that guy, by the way. The only one who figured out COVID for Democrats.
Yeah.
Frankly.
All right, so we've got Pass Competes Act. We've got repeal the Jones Act. Anything else you would toss in? Like, what are the quick wins?
Yeah, quick wins. I think that you can find bipartisan support for incentivizing localities across the country with sticks and carrots to increase zoning density, to increase multi-use zoning, which I believe is a real fundamental mistake that America has a long time ago sort of cut out. You walk down like Copenhagen or Amsterdam or something, it's like, retail, a couple offices, homes. Like, you don't have to have as much transit. You don't have to have a carbon footprint, and it's pleasant, frankly. We should do things like that. And there is a national, ability to affect that based on using grants and penalties and bond issues and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's the ability to move to a national infrastructure bank. There's no reason that we should be relying on congressional seniority and pet projects to get us, in some cases, bridges to nowhere or gleaming white elephant airports when Penn Station is just what it is. You know what I mean?
No, it's wild. This is even happening in D.C., where there's like some proposal in D.C. to build a whole new Union Station, and it's like it's literally just making it nicer. It is not doing anything to the service at all. It's like billions of dollars.
It's insane. Okay, so now you've got one bigger thing that I put out 2 years. Two things I put out 2 years ago. One was the Family Opportunity Guarantee, and the reason that we talked about a child dividend, we called it, but a child tax credit, is that Mitt Romney, at the time Marco Rubio and others, that was Marco Rubio version, 0.2002 robot has rebooted, and now he's back to Trumpism. But there was a time in which he supported a child tax dividend as a poverty reduction measure in America. But there are ways, and I think there are bills out there that finds a common ground to make that the reality. It was an incredibly strong policy that reduced child poverty in half in the first year alone. For a year, and then we took it away, which is part of the reason I think that we're going to see that we have to be able to govern and effectively provide people support on a day-to-day lives. But anyway, there's that's one. And then the other was a discovery project. So at the height of the space race, we spent 2.8% of our federal budget on research and development, basic R&D. And that yielded untold benefits, immeasurable benefits to the U.S. economy. From the internet to Velcro to Tang, as we've always heard from NASA. But I mean, there's seriously a lot of things that you didn't expect coming out of that, because it's basically a national industrial policy that we don't have, and that a lot of countries do. And I'm certain that Republicans would not support that right now. But there is this, ability, I think, to say, all right, fine, I'll level with you. Some of you believe in climate change, Republicans, and some of you don't. But the way to solve that problem is to out-innovate our way through it. And that is in all hands on deck, all approaches, including nuclear and mini nuclear, which Britain and France are building across their countryside, including carbon capture, which we need to do because we just put too much carbon in the air. And anyone who says that we can have that as being part of the all hands on deck plan is not serious on climate change. But the idea would be to make a massive one-time investment like Operation Warp Speed into making these things economically viable for good. Let the flywheel of the economy capture that and rapidly decarbonize the economy, rather than coming up with different, $75 EV credits and subsidies for favorite industries to get to the point where we don't have enough consensus to get the solution. So That's my dream scenario. If I pass something like that, I will leave Congress, guys. That is the thing. I'm running against two 30-year incumbents, and I think that you should treat this like a public service. It is not a career. It is not a lifetime appointment. It is not your fiefdom. And there are some big things I want to do for this country and for this world, and that's why I'm doing it.
So we've been talking for almost an hour. We're going to get you out of here soon. Don't want to keep you too long, but one final question, and this one I thought was interesting because you are and I am in the middle of Manhattan. We live in one of the bluest parts of the country, and it's no surprise that sometimes in the very bluest parts of the country, you get very, very, very left-leaning people. I don't know if that accurately describes what's going on in this district with you and Nadler and Maloney, but certainly like AOC comes from New York. A lot of the DSA members come from New York. San Francisco politicians can be very left-leaning. And the question was, do these very, very deep blue Democrats from the most Democratic districts, do they owe anything to the Democrats who are getting elected in red and purple districts? Do they have some kind of responsibility there? Or should they just be as blue as their districts are?
I think it can go both ways, guys. I think that you need mobilization and you need persuasion to win elections. You need to both mobilize a base with exciting projects and things that you want to push forward, and you also need to persuade. And I think that this symbiosis has to play out. I'm not going to tell.
Sorry, can you say that again? I think you broke up just a little bit in terms of the volume.
Oh yeah, I was saying that I think that symbiosis has to play out. That you need both persuasion and mobilization to win an election and to build a national brand, to build a national party. You both need the hardcore true believers, and you need to go win over people. And those two things need to play and interplay. I'm not about to tell people how they should be in their districts. They should represent the people within the corners of their districts. And if that district is super socialist, then that's fine. That's what you should be. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, they do that. They do that for their, far right wacko ideology. That being said, I think that we risk, sounding like, you can't open the New York Times Edward page on a day without seeing some, it's like I often joke to my little brother, who's my campaign deputy manager and policy director. I often joke like, this is why Republicans hate us, or this is why the middle of the country hates us, because there's always some, absurd, Maureen Dowd article or something that sounds exactly like what these guys say that liberals are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm, and so we should be a little more diligent and deliberate about the statements we make about people. I do believe that.
All right.
One last point. I was talking to an older voter today, and he made a good point. When Howard Dean in 2004 or 5, whatever it was, became DNC chair, and he had the 50-state strategy. The reason he did is because if you're not listening to Democrats in Utah or Montana telling you about their positions, even if there are no seats being won, then the only thing you're hearing is Rush Limbaugh or Tucker Carlson telling you that, Ilhan Omar is going to come impose Sharia law here. Now, both that's incredibly inaccurate, Islamophobic, and racist, but we know that. But it's on us to make sure we don't allow the 100% of the messaging coming from one side. And so I do believe that we have an obligation to make a pitch across all 50 states to all people, because what we're doing is continually narrowing the board. It's like you play Risk and you're like trying to do a one continent strategy. It's not going to work. And we've really, backs against the wall at this point.
All right. So where can people find out more about you? As we close the interview, if people are curious, if they want to learn more about you, or where should they go?
Yeah, please come to my website is www.surajpatel.nyc. That's SurajPatel.nyc. And then all our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, are Suraj Patel NYC. Would love to have your support. Look, we're 57 days from Election Day in what is going to be one of the tightest elections in the country. We have polling that shows that we have an incredible path to victory right down the middle of this district, with 2 incumbents from 30
Farron
years
J.
of experience
cheered.
each slugging it out for the same
X100.
group
Will
of
he
voters.
support adding legislative
And we'd love your
protection for
help
trans
on
service
a
members
number
from
of
being
things.
forced out of the
On
military by a
amplification,
future administration?
just spreading our message, socials, things like that, with reporters, articles, things like that. Fundraising, we're of course a 100% human-powered campaign. We have no corporate PAC money, so if you can contribute, our website has a link on it. And thirdly, if you're in New York, we need bodies. We'd love to have your help knocking doors, making phone calls. And that's it. And lastly, by the way, I imagine in this group especially, there's a lot of policy folks. I consider myself a policy entrepreneur. I think that this campaign is very proud of the fact that we write a lot of unique policy no one's talking about. If you have ideas, if you have cutting-edge theories, things you want us to talk about, send them our way. We'd love to get your help in writing some of it and putting it on the website and talking about it.
We did have one question come in right at the very death, so we'll get that and then we'll get you out of here. Would you support legislative protections for trans service members to not be forced out of the military in a future administration?
Yes.
One of those things that you think we should codify rather than just doing it via executive action.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Suraj, thank you so much for joining us here. I think we had a lot of fun. I think the chat had a lot of fun. Big reactions whenever you mentioned the Jones Act specifically. So thank you for joining us. And we will be watching the campaign, I think, with incredible interest, and hopefully see you around.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Is there a clip of this available?
Yes, there will be. So once it's done, it's a live stream, but once it's done, the video on demand will go to our YouTube channel, and sometimes we take clips and we make audiograms, or we take like little 1-minute clips and we put them on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know. We'll send some stuff your way.
Yeah, shoot me the final full, and we'd love to clip parts of it because we love to spread stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, that's my face twice now, so you get a double dose of me. All right, guys, that was awesome. I'm a big fan of Suraj, and it's fun. I say Suraj because it's spelled S-U-R-A-J, so I say Suraj, but I think it's pronounced Suraj.
Why am I persecuted here?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the bits. I do feel persecuted sometimes, but we have another guest coming. I'm not changing the screen, actually, for right now. I'm not changing the screen because we actually have another guest coming up in just about 3 minutes. So that was Suraj Patel, running for Congress in New York's 12th district, running against Maloney, running against Nadler, 60 years of incumbency. Coming up in just 3 minutes, we have Cathy Reisenwitz. If you don't know Cathy, she is fantastic. She does a lot of policy work and a lot of writing and a lot of advocacy in terms of both sex workers and trying to protect them and have a more realistic, reasonable sex policy. And as you can see, she's about to join the call. So let's get her on now. We're pivoting, and we're probably going to be talking a lot about Roe. So let's do this now. Hello.
Hey,
Cathy, how are you?
I'm super well. How are you, Jeremiah?
I am doing really, really well. I mean, and what I mean to say is I'm glad to be talking to you. Doing well is, it's been a strange week. On top of everything else, today there were like these bombshell January 6th revelations that a whole nother layer of fucked up on top of everything. But anyways, I was just introducing you to the crowd. I was trying to explain, like, who is Cathy Reisenwitz for people who don't know her. And then in the middle of that, it was like, oh, she's here. So why don't you just give people a little bit about who you are and kind of the work that you do and just the writing and the advocacy that you've done in the past.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and letting me introduce myself. I'm a writer and activist and sex worker. My main outlet is Sex in the State, which is a newsletter on Substack that is at cathyreisenwitz.substack.com. I'm also very active on Twitter. I have in the past focused on housing policy. Lately, I'm more focused on the burgeoning war on sex. So that includes everything from attempts to limit access to pornography to the human trafficking moral panic and the ways that sex workers are criminalized and deplatformed and financially excluded and things like that. So yeah, that's the majority of what I work on, but I also write about a bunch of different topics.
And it's funny because I always consider you at some of the cutting edge of these, of what society's like ready to talk about, but we're kind of like moving backwards and having to talk about not like I don't know if cutting edge is the right word, but like kind of that line of acceptability. But now we're having to move back and be like, oh, okay, well, what about literally just a right to abortion? Or are they going to overturn birth control? What was that case that the Texas case that legalized quote unquote sodomy, basically same-sex intimacy? Like all
Right.
of this is kind of like up for debate now. It seems like we're
Lawrence?
almost moving backwards. Your work is going to have to move backwards almost in a sense.
Yeah, it's really disheartening. And it's something that I'm not shocked to see, but it's so funny, progress moves at an astonishing pace sometimes. I think I definitely expected it to take longer for cannabis legalization, for example, to be as widespread as it's been, but the backlash also moves very quickly. And so it's a very scary time.
So we're in this weird spot where the Roe v. Wade decision was leaked, like 2 months ago, something like that?
I believe so.
And then, so when it came, it was almost like people were really outraged, but also it was a little bit muted. Was it like that for you when it got announced this weekend? Because we kind of knew it was coming, or was it still fresh? I don't know.
I mean, I was at the courthouse protesting after the opinion was leaked. I'm obviously, you hope somebody got something wrong or it wouldn't actually happen, but I wasn't shocked by any stretch. And I think if you've been paying attention to abortion rights, abortion was already kind of de facto illegal in a lot of the country. And, the conservatives have been saying for 20 years now, we want to overturn Roe v. Wade. As soon as we can, we're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. And so...
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's narrow there for a second, because you're right. This has been something that's been under attack, especially in red states. Can you talk about some of the things that have made it, what you said, de facto illegal in a lot of the country? What are the strategies that have been used in the time when they couldn't just overturn Roe v. Wade? What's been happening?
Yeah. Well, so the latest thing has been that states have been passing laws that weren't going to pass constitutional muster under Roe v. Wade. But even before that, one of the most effective strategies was to implement standards for abortion providers that were extremely difficult for the abortion providers to meet. And so they would regulate things like how wide your hallways have to be, whether the physicians have admitting privileges to nearby hospitals. And some of these regulations could be justified on health and safety grounds, but a lot of them really couldn't at all. Abortion is an incredibly safe procedure, far safer than giving birth. And there was no good evidence that these regulations were needed to protect health and safety. They were primarily aimed at limiting access to abortion, and they worked. They shut down all of the abortion providers in many states, and the vast majority in most of the states where this strategy was implemented.
Yeah, you hear a lot about like, oh, South Dakota has one abortion provider, or all of Mississippi and Alabama between them have one or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
That might not be specifically true what I just said, but it's some of those states are like that.
Correct. Yeah, and that's not the result of the fact that people aren't willing to provide abortions or that it can't be done profitably or anything like that. It's a result of targeted efforts by legislators to use regulations to limit access to abortion.
So we have an interesting question from chat here, because we're live, we're streaming, and there's just thoughts coming in from people. And this one was really interesting to me, so I'm going to ask it. Because you recently moved from San Francisco to back to Alabama, is that right?
That's right.
What's the name of the town again? It's a small town,
Huntsville.
right? Huntsville? Oh, so not too small. Are you
not terribly small?
Are you in Huntsville proper? Or are you like around Huntsville, or?
I'm technically in Madison, which is kind of a suburb of Huntsville.
I have in-laws. Some of my wife's like in-law family are out in Guntersville. If you're aware of Gunter, it's like what, like 30 minutes away or something.
Yeah, 30, 45, yeah.
Very southern name, Guntersville. By the way.
True.
But so, as someone who moved from San Francisco, which is almost a parody of itself at times. I know you love San Francisco. There's things to love about it. There's things to not love about it. But moving from San Francisco to suburban Alabama, basically, is a hell of a culture shock. And this person is asking about how to reach conservative women or women in red states. And I'll just read this. Do you have a view on how to reach women who are culturally conservative but are not diehard pro-life women? They often don't have a college degree. They're often just living in a culturally conservative red part of the country. And this person is speculating maybe there's enough of these women out there who are not really enthused about overturning Roe v. Wade, even though they're usually kind of conservative. They might be softly pro-choice. I think it's interesting that this kind of coincides with your move into Alabama. Do you have any thoughts about just the politics of that? How do we reach women like that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually was just thinking about this after having spent a lot of time in enclosed spaces with family members recently. And I will say, I grew up in outside of Huntsville, and so this is, I didn't just pick Huntsville on a map. I'm moving back, but I grew up very pro-life. I grew up raising money for crisis pregnancy centers, and my mind changed over the years. And I was thinking about the people who, in my own family who are supporting the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And I was thinking about, when I think about being pro-life, obviously it gets back to control and misogyny and these kinds of things. But when I look at my family members, they're not actively trying to control women necessarily. Like, they're not actively misogynistic. I think it's really helpful to look at the situation and say, ideas are kind of like viruses, right? They find willing hosts.
It's the whole idea of memes, right? In the technical sense, memes are mind viruses.
Exactly. And so I think it's really important to take a step back. And it's, especially online, the discourse is so us against them. These are my enemies. These people are trying to screw me. These people don't care about me, yada, yada. I think it's much more helpful to look at it and say, these people are infected with the virus. These people have encountered a set of memes that has found purchase within them. But given the right sets of circumstances, given the right information, they're totally capable of seeing it differently. And I know for me, and I think for most people, what happens is you have a change of heart and it leaves you open to a change of mind, right? You can get all the alternate information that you want, but if your heart is dead set in a certain position, it's going to bounce right off of you. And for me, I think it was coming to genuinely empathize with people who are in a position where they needed an abortion. And I think that's kind of the first step, is for people to tell their stories and for people to tell other people's stories and say, you know, this could be you, this could be your daughter. Even if you do all the right things, you know, you could still be in a position, you could have an ectopic pregnancy, you could be a victim of rape, like this could be you. And, you know, a lot of data suggests when it is you, the most ardent pro-life people, you know, change their position, at least for enough time to avail themselves of reproductive health care.
There's no it's that version of the there's no atheists in a foxhole, except there's no pro-life people when you're when you're unexpectedly pregnant. I don't know. That's probably a terrible way to explain it.
But yeah, so like these people aren't our enemies. They're dealing with a problem that is a set of ideas that are not helpful. And I think that when you start to look at the situation, people in power really want this conversation to be someone has to lose, right? You're either protecting the babies or you're protecting the women. But the reality of the situation is, no one has to lose. There are policies that reliably are empirically shown to prevent abortions, that don't require privacy violations, that don't require more women to die, that don't require criminalizing miscarriage, right? So material support for parents, right? We've seen with the child tax credit that actually measurably reduced abortions. We've seen free, easy to access birth control measurably reduces abortions. We've seen that medically accurate, comprehensive sex education measurably reduces abortions, and no one has to die for any of those policies to get implemented. And so seeing people as your potential allies who just but, you know, could possibly benefit from a slight change in heart condition as far as who they empathize with, and then just a broader set of information. A lot of people who are on the fence, a lot of people just don't, like, I didn't know until months ago that an ectopic pregnancy is very common, and the only way to not get killed by it is an abortion, right? Who was going to tell me that? You know, health class didn't go into that. Sex ed certainly in Alabama didn't go into that. It's easy to not know that. And so, yeah, just seeing people as potential allies who just need a little different perspective and a lot more information.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, kind of like, it doesn't have to be, well, this right versus that right. Somebody has to lose, right? But I had an interesting conversation, I think either earlier this year or maybe even last year on the podcast, with a guy named Lance Freeman. And he's he's a legal scholar, and he dislikes the entire American idea of rights, in that we conceptualize rights as these very absolute things. Like, if in the abortion case, there's either a right for a woman to control what's going on in her body, or there's a right for the baby to live. And whichever one of those rights you think, like, they can't both exist at the same time. Literally, one of them has to win over the other, and that's how we decide legal questions, kind of, in America. And he points to other countries where they don't do that. Like, he'll say in Germany, you know, or in Irish court, they literally just say, well, both of those rights are real and they both exist, so we've got to come to some kind of compromise that respects both of them. And they kludge together something that, frankly, is a lot better than U.S. policy. It's, on its face, it's more restrictive. Like, I think in Germany, abortion is technically illegal, but, like, the loophole is so wide that you can drive, like, a semi-truck through it. And in a practical sense, in the first trimester, it's very, very, very easy to get an abortion. And then after that, it's a little more difficult. But, like, I don't know. It's just, they have this, like, weird kludge together thing where they try to make everyone happy. And it's not a culture war topic there, which is... It's like, America's a little bit strange in that a lot of, like, European countries don't have this as, like, a permanent feature of the culture war. It's not much of a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I was reading a quote by a pastor, and he so brilliantly articulated how a fetus is a perfect person to advocate for because it doesn't require anything from you. It's not complicated. And it doesn't require you to sacrifice. It doesn't require your tax dollars.
It will never speak up and disagree with you.
Exactly. And so, Republicans have, been really brilliant to make this such a wedge issue because it is so seemingly clear cut and so divisive, and so lends itself so perfectly to tribalism. But I think the rights point is really good, and I think that one thing that America does that's kind of frustrating is that my friend Matthew Feeney used to say rights are like fairies, right? Like they're made up and they should serve some purpose, right? The concept of rights should serve some purpose beyond they exist for their own,
I've
whatever
heard them
it
called
is.
a useful fiction,
Right. And so I think what other countries probably do a little bit better is they say, what are we trying to accomplish, right? Well, I'm trying to accomplish, a world where people are able to survive and flourish, and they are not criminalized when they have a miscarriage, and that as few fetuses are aborted as possible because of not a thing that we want to happen all the time. And so instead of looking at like whose right is more important in this instance, look at which policy creates the world we want to live in. And criminalizing abortion does not create the world we want to live in. It has a lot of unintended consequences and is not particularly effective at reducing how many abortions happen. Whereas these other policies that don't really take rights into account, medically accurate comprehensive sex ed is not primarily a rights issue. But it does create the world that I think most people want to live in, which is one where people understand how pregnancy happens and how to avoid it if they want to. And it's even bigger than that, right? Medically accurate comprehensive sex ed also reduces rates of sexual assault, which then also reduces rates of abortion. So, yeah.
Someone in chat just said Europe is better because they shipped all their religious extremists here.
But I think rights should serve us. We shouldn't serve rights.
Yeah. Okay. So we're in this weird situation where, like, we're going to end up with this very polarized society in terms of just basic reproductive
What's the ETA
health,
on that?
Reproductive health stuff. Where like you're going to have parts of the country where abortion is incredibly illegal, and they will go after anybody who helps you find an abortion, and there will be like Texas has already done this. But then you're going to have places where like liberal states, in the U.S., California and New York and places like that have some of the broadest abortion access in the world, like far more available than almost any other country. And I don't know, we're in this weird spot where like, how does a country like deal with something like that? Just having de facto two sets of, I feel like nobody's had a chance to think through what this is actually going to mean and for like practically.
Well, I think a lot of people are thinking through what it's going to mean for individuals, which is that a lot more women are going to die. But what it's going to mean for politics is interesting. And I wonder, obviously, a lot of people are wondering whether Republicans have overplayed their hand here. I think one thing that's interesting about the abortion situation is that it's very similar to the war on drugs, where you have some states that are, and especially some cities that are very permissive and some cities that are not permissive at all, right? And that no matter where you live, the burden of criminalization comes down disproportionately on marginalized people. The same is true of abortion, right? The difference between the war on drugs.
Could I stick with you right there? Because I think I want to drill down right there, the disproportionate impact. And I had a take the other day, and I'd love to just throw it at you and see if you think it's accurate or if you think it's not accurate. But I was thinking this through, and I'm thinking, look, for people who are well off or even just well informed, I don't even think it's always a monetary issue, but people who are really well informed, news literate, upper middle class, no matter where you live in the country, those people will still be able to get abortions. It won't even be that hard. It'll be people who don't know as much, don't follow the news as quickly as aren't as news literate, aren't as policy literate, or who have no resources. That's where the issue is going to be, because I think about things like abortion pill by mail or just traveling to another state, and I think, look, if you have resources and you know what you're doing, it's actually not going to be that hard. But again, it's that disproportionate impact. So I don't know. Am I too optimistic there for the upper middle class person, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would never argue that the burden will not fall disproportionately on marginalized people, but I think the difference between the drug war and abortion bans is, especially the way that they're being implemented now, being written now, is that you can't avoid doing drugs, and that's how a lot of people deal with it. But you can't always avoid getting pregnant, and pregnancy happens to people across.
I hear some cultural conservatives like screeching in the background, but I agree
rape
with you.
is a thing, and there is no way for the body to shut that thing down. Actually, I hate to break it to a lot of Americans, but that's not medically accurate. But yeah, so pregnancy can happen to anyone, and a lot of abortions are required by people who want to have children. So again, an ectopic pregnancy
isn't the majority. I heard some stat, and correct me if you think I got this wrong, where it's like more than half of abortions are women who already have a child.
So that's true, but then in addition, a lot of abortions are of wanted children.
Yeah.
Again, you're trying to get pregnant, you find out you're pregnant, you find out that it's in the fallopian tube instead of in the uterus, right? You can have all the money in the world, but if there comes a time when you have a limited window of time to get the fetus out before your tube bursts and you are in imminent danger. And if you're in a state where your healthcare provider won't perform that abortion, and you don't get to a state where there's a healthcare provider who will in time, you will die. And so wealthy women with all the education in the world are going to die. And this other thing is, a lot of times, we have this whole conversation about partial birth abortion. Well, the vast majority of partial birth abortions are of wanted children who are not going to survive outside the womb, or who, if carried further, will kill or maim the mother.
Yeah, and by partial birth abortion, I'll just clarify, we mean
late term,
very, very late term, usually third trimester abortions.
Yes, that's
which
the right
is
term.
something like 1% of
it's
all
extremely rare, and it's almost never, I just waited till the last minute. It's like, no, I wanted to have this baby, and something is preventing me from being able to do that. And so that can happen to wealthy, well-educated, upper class women and people who can give birth as well. And so this is definitely going to be a very bad time for people who can get pregnant across the class, income, education spectrum, unfortunately. Yeah.
Not to center a dude's conversation about this, but I really did like Pete Buttigieg's speech, which I think makes the rounds a lot about that issue, about how late-term abortions are the most heartbreaking kind, and they are not what people want to do in almost any instance. I think that was a lot of people's first exposure to that idea. So if nothing else, he helped popularize it. But there's a question from chat that I wanted to ask. Someone's basically asking, what do you think about these kind of schemes people are coming up with for like transportation services, or like donating money to help create some of these things? Or I've heard of like pill by mail schemes where like we'll send anybody who wants it pills, like, because it's easy and cheap. It sucks that we even have to be having this conversation, but do you have any thoughts about those kind of efforts?
Yeah, I think the organizations who are facilitating abortions are doing the Lord's work and are doing amazing things, and we absolutely need them. But I will say the DIY abortion help is very dangerous territory. I think that you are putting yourself at grave risk of prosecution, if nothing else, investigation, if you indicate that you would help someone get an illegal abortion, um, and you don't probably have the training to help them avoid legal trouble. And so I would just warn people that if you are not part of an organization that's already existing and that understands the challenges of this work, that instead of doing it yourself, like go to these existing organizations who understand how to minimize privacy concerns, understand how to minimize legal liability, understand how to advise people on how to use these drugs safely, to avail yourself of the existing infrastructure. And if you want to help, give money to the organizations that are doing the work.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a good take is don't try to DIY abortions. Like that's yeah.
I mean, if you have to, you have to, but there are organizations that exist to help you.
Yeah. No, I just I don't know, man. It's weird to be out of the realm of that kind of like almost abortion fights used to be like in the realm of like NIMBYism, honestly, like you said, like the hallways, or just you have to have this, like it honestly reminds me of housing fights, the way it used to be, where people would just come up with ridiculous reasons to oppose something, like with housing, it's always that it's going to cast a shadow on this park, right, or it's going to change the community character, and with abortion facilities, it was, your hallways aren't wide enough, or you don't have this specific admitting privilege at a hospital 200 miles away, and it's weird to be out of that realm into just, well, I guess it's straight up illegal now. I don't
With
know.
no exceptions for rape or incest in 11 states.
Mm-hmm. I actually went through when this whole thing happened 2 months ago, when the news first broke, and I actually read all of the different trigger laws that existed, and yeah, a bunch of them, I think something like 9 out of the 13 trigger laws that are on the books had no exception for rape or incest.
Yeah, the fetal personhood movement, I've been following that for a few years, and I was reading Gia Tolentino, I believe, I don't know, but New Yorker writer. She wrote an amazing piece about the situation, about how we're actually going forward to a world that is worse than pre-Roe, and it's the way that these laws are written is, in Tennessee, they implemented this personhood law, which required healthcare providers to report possible instances of drug use by pregnant people, and they found it actually increased health problems for babies and moms because they just availed themselves of healthcare less.
Yeah. And I mean, look, we should specify, almost every Republican you talk to will, I'll say almost, because there are some who will just say it out loud, but most of them will say, we don't want to be punishing women. Maybe we'll criminalize this for the doctor to do it, but we want to help women. We don't want to criminalize women. But there are already, even before this decision, there have been instances of women who are in jail because they had a miscarriage, basically.
Right. And these laws absolutely de facto criminalize miscarriage. There is no way to determine conclusively whether a miscarriage is intentional or just what happened. You can't do it. And so having the state investigate miscarriages and then having a prosecutor decide whether, this just happened to you or you did something to cause it is absolutely going to punish pregnant people. And frankly, you can say what you want to say, but if the goal were not to punish pregnant people, why would you not support the policies that more effectively reduce abortion that don't require punishing pregnant people?
Yeah. Do you have a point of view on the whole? There's a specific type of conservative that has been advocating for conservatives should now be more thoughtful and they should support more family support, more you know, whether it's child tax credit or more blah blah blah, more resources basically. And this is not what the Republican Party is doing, mind you, but there's a few people out, like Ross Douthat has said this. Do you have any thoughts about, like, is that a joke? Is it something the Republican Party might actually do? Are these people like smoking crack basically, or I don't know, because people are fighting about it now online about whether or not, like, this is like, there's 12 people who want to outlaw abortion and then also provide lots of support, but most of them are just you know, not doing that.
I have not seen a single self-described pro-life person, organization, candidate advocate for policies that effectively reduce the rate of abortion. I haven't seen it. I'm not an expert. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but I would not say.
I think it exists mostly on like opinion pages. Like, this is like the anti-Trump Republican that is extremely common in Washington, D.C., and then nowhere else in the country.
Yeah. And I will say, I do think that there is a movement within conservatism that is decidedly like pro-natal and supports pro-natal policies. And so, you know, that is what it is. And some of that, especially when it comes to supporting families, would fall under the rubric of policies that could actually prevent abortion. I haven't seen any conservatives push for, that's not true. I've seen very few conservatives push for medically accurate comprehensive sex education. And I've seen very few conservatives push for cheaper, easier to access birth control. I will say our Street Institute is doing good work trying to make birth control available over the counter, which would do a lot to increase access to birth control. But for the most part, I'm not seeing support for these kinds of policies that would actually be effective. It seems like the conversation is so focused on criminalization.
We should do a thing where we say the fact that birth control has to be prescription is socialism. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't think that's what socialism is, but hell, everything else gets called socialism. So let's.
Well, it's sure as hell a big government. You know, it's sure as hell a nanny state.
I'm coming off a conversation where apparently Jared Polis likes to say the Jones Act is socialism, which again, like, whatever, but it's a great line. People hate socialism, so, you know, why not? The Jones Act is socialism, but regulated birth control is socialism. That's what I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
The other fight that I see, because in the wake of all this, lots of fights break out. And I don't just mean the obvious ones between, you know, abortion is murder versus get your hands off my body kind of fight. But you see this fight where some conservatives want a better welfare state, and then others just are laughing quietly. You also see this fight where people are now sniping at each other about, number one, whose fault is this among the Democrats? Number two, what should we do now? There's a lot of talk about codifying certain protections. Democrats should codify Roe. Do we have the votes? Is that a good strategy? What do you think about kind of this question about, like, what should be done? I guess from the perspective of the Democratic Party, because that's who's going to do something if it's going to get done. What should the strategy be politically to try to do what we can with this overturned?
AOC had a great thread on what the Democrats should do, and I defer to her. I think, you know, she knows a lot more about it than I do. The ideas seem sound to me. So whatever she wants to do, I'm for. I also think we should pack the court.
I'm going to make that a quote, by the way. Whatever AOC wants to do, Cathy Reisenwitz approves it. Cathy Reisenwitz, okay. Noted socialist.
People already think that. Please don't. But yeah, in this area, you know, she seems down. I think we should pack the court for sure. And
you're pro PAC.
Yeah, I'm pro PAC for sure. Not for sure, but it seems like the thing.
Interesting.
I mean, Noah Smith is pro PACing.
Baron J cheered. X100. Always defer to AOC.
I'm very skeptical of that. Like, I see that going very badly. But give me the idea.
I think. I mean, what Noah Smith said, essentially, if I remember correctly, is, you know, there was a greater threat of, eroding trust in institutions, shaking things up before, but this Supreme Court is sufficiently radical, sufficiently anti-democratic, that we lose less by packing it. I'm not a fan of the Supreme Court as an institution, so protecting the sanctity of the Supreme Court is not particularly interesting to me. And I think the thing that I want people to understand is, when you look at countries like Iran or Hungary, or even Poland, the amount you can go backwards and the speed at which you can go backwards is not something I think a lot of Americans are thinking about, are aware of, sufficiently afraid of. And so when we think about the laws and the norms and the consequences of the decisions that have already been put forward and are likely to come forward in the future, we're heading backwards, and we may go farther faster than people are ready for. And so we need to weigh the pros and cons. And I don't think that protecting the sanctity of the Supreme Court is super compelling right now.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, first, that the sanctity of the Supreme Court is one of those useful fictions.
Right.
I wish that we still all agreed that there was a sanctity to the Supreme Court, because when we did agree that 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever, it was very, very useful as like a restraining kind of factor for Congress and for the president. That look, the Supreme Court has always been political, but it's a useful fiction that they're just calling balls and strikes, and it kind of stops them from doing anything too crazy. And I agree that we're basically losing that. We're losing that useful fiction has mostly been torn down. But at the same time, I look at like the past instances where this has happened. Like I think Ulysses S. Grant, people say that he packed the court. You can debate whether he did or not, whether it counts. But he also had like a 60-10 majority in the Senate when he did it. So like he had the whole, like he could do whatever the fuck he wanted, basically. And FDR, when he threatened the court with his famous like, rah, rah, don't you dare, say Social Security is unconstitutional. Again, FDR had like a 75% of the House and like an absurd, they were operating from a position of power that the Democrats don't currently have. The Democrats currently, they're going to get walloped. They're going to lose the House, almost certainly. For the next 10, 20 years, they're at this massive structural disadvantage in the Senate, where they might lose the Senate in this upcoming election and not get it back for 15 or 20 years. And I look at that and I think, is now the optimal time, when they've got 6 months of power to do this? Because if they do, would the Republicans not just literally 6 months from now, pack it back and, okay, well, we're going to put in 100 new justices and middle fingers in the air kind of thing. So I'm not saying I have a better idea on how to fix what's broken in the Supreme Court, but that's just kind of where I'm coming from on that. I don't know. I don't have any solutions to this, I guess.
I'm not a constitutional scholar, Supreme Court expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know that 2/3 of Americans support keeping Roe in place, and this Supreme Court is just really out of touch with the American people, and I think where we want America to go.
It is nakedly political. We should cast aside any notion that the Supreme Court is, they're interpreting the law, they're calling balls and strikes. No, they are straight up political actors. They mostly always have been, but it's moved from 80% political, 20% interpreting the law to 95-5 maybe at this point. I'm only holding out 5% of actual philosophical law, because I think Neil Gorsuch has a weird commitment to Indian rights or something. He has this weird thing where if the U.S. government signed a treaty 200 years ago with some Indian nation that doesn't even exist anymore, they still have to honor it. So that's the one thing that I will give him credit for. But yeah, no, they're just, oh, well, we have to send this back to the states when it's abortion. When it's gun control, New York is not allowed to have their own opinions on this. It's naked political maneuvering.
Well, and the fact that interracial marriage, the ability to have gay sex without
Yeah.
criminalization,
It's
birth
so
control,
weird. It's so
these are
weird that,
all
like,
in peril.
some of the justices are like, look, the reasoning of the court does not imply that, the same-sex intimacy is now under attack. And Samuel Alito is going, yes, it very much is. I would very much like to remove. They can't even agree what the story is, because so I guess Alito is way more gung-ho about, like, let's just literally run back all of the last 30 years of decisions. But I don't know. It's depressing. I don't know. You holding up okay? Like,
Yeah. I mean, I've been focused on depressing areas related to sex and gender for a very long time. So yeah,
Fair
but
enough.
it's very scary to me, to be in this spot and to have the Supreme Court justices that were appointed just lie to Congress about their intentions, and for that to be a feather in their cap to a lot of American voters it's really terrifying.
Oh God, also, can I just say, is there any more contemptible, like, just worthy of scorn than, like, Susan fucking Collins being like, I am so shocked that all of these judges who were specifically chosen to overturn Roe, that they lied to me about, like, I don't have enough contempt for that. Like, look, Susan Collins is useful in other circumstances, but, like, oh my God, like, what do you even say to that? Like, how shocked you were.
Yeah, I don't have time for it, but I will. Going back to your previous question about what should Democrats do, you know what I think Democrats should do? The reason this has happened is because conservatives have been extremely effective at organizing at every level. The Federalist Society, paying for kids to go to law school, sending them to free classes when they're in law school. Like, they get it done. And the progressive movement has no comparative infrastructure in place to radicalize, educate, organize, activate the people who are going to be in power. And so
It's weird
but
with
I would
law
love
schools specifically, because there's no progressive organizing in law schools, because 90% of them are hardcore progressives. And it's almost this weird thing where, like, because conservatives in law school are only like 10% of the population, they actually have an infrastructure for, like, identifying themselves and, like, organizing, and like, there's a weird phenomenon going on there.
Well, and I think that we misunderstand the lay of the game when we talk about 90% of lawyers being hardcore progressives. 90% of lawyers are coastal elites,
I'll say
right? They have
culturally progressive, yeah, coastal elite, cultural kind of blue.
right, but they're not anti-power, they're not anti-status quo, they're not radical, and no one is radicalizing them, no one is educating them, no one is organizing them. And so what you have, if you have a bunch of people who are milquetoast and not activated, and then a small group of people who are educated, supported, all these things, they're going to get further faster. And so, yeah, we need to create the institutions and infrastructure that the right has perfected on the left.
Yeah. There was one thing that was really interesting to me in terms of, like, what do Democrats do now, that I'd love to just get your reaction to. And I first saw this in a Josh Barrow piece, where he said, so there was a bill that passed the House where they were like, it's a big abortion rights bill. It passed with Democratic votes and 0 Republican votes. But it wasn't really his argument, this isn't an effective bill because number one, it didn't go anywhere in the Senate, and number two, like a lot of things in the House that they know are not going to pass the Senate, is just this grab bag of 100 different things. You know, it codified the right to an abortion, but then it also had birth control. It also had, and literally people were just tossing shit in that they thought was, it's my little pet project. We know it's not going to pass. It's a messaging bill, whatever. Let's just throw it in there. But his argument was that this gives them an excuse not to vote for it. They can, oh, look how much pork there is in this bill. Look, oh, here's some obscure clause I don't agree with. So he advocated a strategy of basically one-line bills. Number one, we bring up a bill that says a woman who is raped has a right to an abortion. Next bill, woman who is a victim of incest has a right to an abortion. That's it. Next bill, women cannot be prosecuted for seeking an abortion. And like basically make them vote on the things that would be the most intensely unpopular. And, you know, look, if they vote for it, maybe we can actually pass the bill. If they vote against it, well, then we've got them on record as saying rape victims should be forced to give birth. Like, I don't know. That's the only thing I've seen that seems like realistic. Both it might actually have an impact and maybe they could actually do it, which of course means it's not what they're going to do because the Democrats are not that competent. But Democratic leadership in the House is like 80 years old universally, and I don't know. But that's the only.
I have
thing
a question
I've
for
seen.
you.
Yeah.
If you will indulge me. So on the right, there's obvious economic interests in promulgating certain ideas. It makes people wealthy. On the left, I think in the day of like unions, for example, that was more a thing. But absent unions and corporatism, how do we get a coalition of economic self-interest to help fund and support left-wing causes?
It's an interesting question. I do think that there's something that's been missing from left of center politics for a while, is the idea that it would just be great if we were all wealthier. There's been a focus on this person is too wealthy and we should give some of their money to the less well off. And like, look, I'm not against a welfare state. I think a welfare state is a good idea. Social safety nets are a good idea. The whole idea of take from the rich, give to the poor, we can debate how much it should be, but that fundamentally is a good feature of modern society and modern nation states. But they've been so focused on that there's not a lot of recognition that like the reason we're even able to do this is because we've had so much sustained economic growth for a long time. And I think this is what you're getting at, right? That like society is much wealthier than it was 50 years ago and way, way wealthier than it was 100 years ago. And that's the reason good things are possible. How do we keep that going, I think, is the central question. And I'm kind of what we're trying to do. One of our missions is like the neoliberal project is to kind of build some of that. And you see like writers like Ezra Klein is calling for like supply side progressivism, or I think he's also used the phrase a liberalism that builds, where, you know,
an abundance agenda.
Abundance agenda is another way to say it, but it's all about like how do we get left of center people to be about building things and creating new things. And it's like the John Kennedy version of, well, we're going to go to the moon because we're Americans and damn it, we can do anything. We can do incredible things. Whereas now it's like left of center people are more focused on like, we can't do this. Stop saying that. Stop doing this. This is bad. Don't do it. We need more process. We need more delays. We need community hearings. We need like there's this obsession with process and like who's on top and who's on bottom, and not enough about like how do we. It's almost become a dirty phrase, like a rising tide lifts all boats. Like people use that to like, oh, what an idiot would think that, but like functionally that is true. If the economy grows at 5% a year for the next 50 years, that would be better than any welfare policy we could do, is just sustained economic growth. So I think there's potentially momentum among that idea that progressivism needs to build more, whether that's build more housing, allow more immigrants who start more companies. I'm kind of just pitching my ideology at this point, but like that's the direction I see. And hopefully we can make the politics of it work, because I think it would be a really good thing for the world.
Yeah, no, and I love the abundance agenda, time to build stuff. I think it's great. It's just not clear to me who the target audience is
whose
for this.
self-interest it is. I
Right.
think housing is the biggest wedge issue, because, like, look, we need to build more infrastructure, and infrastructure is way too expensive. We just talked with a congressional candidate before you came on stream, who was talking about how in New York the subway costs like $1.8 billion per kilometer, which is absurd, and just way more than any other country in the world spends. But that's not the kind of thing. You can't like activate people on infrastructure that well. I think housing is one area where you can, because everybody has to either own a home or rent a home. And increasingly, there's more and more young people in cities that are being crunched by the rent crisis. And even if you're not a young person, if you're a 50-year-old person in the suburbs, your kid probably lives in an apartment in a city. You have children who are not able to buy a house. So I think housing is one area where if we can really, and like YIMBYs are making progress. It's slow and it's painful, but the tide, I feel like we can feel the tide turning, that YIMBYs are just going to keep picking up more and more wins. And that's an area where I think we can really hammer home just more. Like, let's build more, let's be a richer society. I think immigration is also something where you look at like the trend line of public opinion on immigration, and the trend line is going in a positive direction and has been for 15 or 20 years. So I think that's another area where we can do this. I don't know if there's a material reason for the immigration one, or if it's just society's getting more culturally accepting of immigration, but I'll take it either way,
Yeah. It makes me wonder. I mean, I know populism is a dirty word among neoliberals, but I was watching Crystal Ball on the Jacobin podcast.
Oh, God.
And
My favorite person, Crystal Ball. That is her real name, by the way. It's incredible to me. That is not a stage name. That's not adopted. Her name is actually Crystal Ball.
I thought so. I think it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's an interesting, because when we talk about rising tide lifting all boats, when we talk about who's going to benefit from cheaper housing, right? It's a fundamentally populist argument in a way, and so I wonder how much room there is. Obviously, we're not trying to do nationalism, and we're not trying to do kind of the yucky sides of populism. But
well, and like the worst kind of political arguments are the ones that just focus on definitions of words. So like, what is real actual populism versus my messaging that is not pop? That's always the worst kind of argument. Right. But the distinguishing feature that I would make is if we're gonna, this is good versus whatever we call it, is the thing that focuses on just fights where you're just focusing on who has more, who has less, who is the person who's hurting you, and we have to punish them. And I think like a lot of what Crystal Ball does, or people like her, is like, this big corporation is awful, or this other thing is awful, and they need to be punished. And like that, fine, to some degree. Like, look, I'm not advocating rich people pay no taxes. I think rich people, I would raise top tax rates if I could right now. But I also think there's just got to be, hello Horn, joys of living in New York. I also just think there's got to be more focus on, if we're going to do populism, let's make it that like everybody benefits from this, rather than making it against this hated enemy that we wag our finger at.
Spider-Croc gave us a bailout.
That's a good distinction and important. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've kept you here for an hour, and we're really glad you're on and you're spending some time with us. But I'll let you go soon. I want to ask one more question before we do. Is there anything that you would recommend for people to do or read, or just like moving forward, for people who are feeling like they want to be activated here? There's people who have kind of been shocked by this, and we always talk about activating people. and whether that's what should those people do, I guess, is my question. This could be, well, go educate yourself with these particular sources. It could be donate to these organizations. It could be use this strategy and go do this kind of activism. Is there any advice that you would give people? And someone in someone in chat is saying we need like 100,000 people to leave New York and go live in Montana. That might actually be a good idea, but let's all move to Alabama and turn Alabama blue, just for Cathy personally. But no, more seriously, what would you recommend to people who feel activated, who feel like they want to do something?
This is going to sound very pat and trite, but listen to marginalized people. And listen to marginalized people because they understand what the threats are. They like whatever is going to suck for you is sucking for them a lot worse and has been for a lot longer. So if you want to understand what sucks for the marginalized. And because marginalized people are canaries in the coal mine, I think the perfect example is sex workers, right? Like everything that they're doing with the anti-abortion stuff, surveillance, criminalization, invasions of privacy, financial exclusion, denial of access to services, like they've been doing to sex workers for a long time. So listening to people who are already experiencing the brunt of state violence is going to give you a better, fuller understanding of A, what's happening and been happening for a long time, but B, what's next for you.
All right, well, we're going to throw, Cathy, what's the name of your, is it just cathyreisenwitz.substack.com? I know it's called Sex in the State.
Yeah. Yep, so if you Google Sex in the State, to bring it up, but Cathy Reisenwitz is spelled CathyReisenwitz. That's my blog. Check me out. That was very
impressive, by the way. That's something you've had to recite several times, I can tell.
I don't expect people to dope out Reisenwitz. And then if you want to see me naked, onlyfans.com/Cathy Reisenwitz. Follow me on Twitter @Cathy Reisenwitz. And appreciate so much you having me on and covering this vital topic.
All right. Well, it was always great to talk to you. We'll have to do it again soon. And everyone, we're going to throw some links in chat. But thank you, Cathy, for coming on the show.
Always good to see you.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
All right. That was an unexpected OnlyFans reference in there, but, you know, it is what it is. Neoliberal OnlyFans discount. I'm going to start an OnlyFans for myself, and it's just going to be like pictures of tacos. That's all it's going to be. And not like in an innuendo way. It's going to be literal pictures of, like, chorizo tacos and lengua, barbacoa. Oh, man. So... Anyway, Cathy is good people. I'm a big fan of Cathy's work. She's very straightforward about the fact that she's a sex worker and she does sex work, and she advocates for policies in sex work. She's very, very intelligent, which is sad that you have to say that. It feels patronizing, but a lot of people assume, cultural assumption, oh, if you're a person doing sex work, you don't have serious thoughts about policy and issues, and, you know, that's unfair. Cathy is very, very insightful, and she writes about a lot of stuff, whether it's women's rights, housing, sex work policy, all that kind of stuff. So always glad to have Cathy on. The next stream, the prize is Cathy OnlyFans discount. You know what? She'll get a kick out of that. She'll get a kick that you guys are memeing this. She might actually do it. I don't know, but. But yeah, no, it's weird because Cathy she was standing AOC and Crystal Ball and things like that. The thing is, she is definitely not a social. She's more libertarian than anything, but I think she also appreciates people who say, like, I think one of Cathy's, like, big things is she appreciates anyone who says fuck you to people in positions of power. You know, that instinct that some people are just more confrontational. Some people are more like, you know, just middle fingers in the air to anybody who has power, you know, fuck the world kind of thing. I think Cathy appreciates anybody who does that. So, so we'll see. All right. Switching back to the old scene. Does the lighting look different between these two? It does. It's a little bit better here, I think. So, got 2 webcams going because of the whole thing with trying to host somebody and all that stuff. Oh, man. Big day, big week. Since the last time we streamed, Roe v. Wade fell. We learned that Trump, like, assaulted a Secret Service member trying to get to the... that's the other thing we haven't even had that much time to talk about, is the revelations about January 6th. That Donald Trump apparently assaulted a Secret Service member trying to force his, like, motorcade to drive to the Capitol so that he could basically riot. He wanted to attend the January 6th riot. Like, that's the wildest thing. The revelations today were that they knew that there were violent people there. They knew that there were people there with guns, like, and weapons and all sorts of, and they knew that violence was going to happen. They said repeatedly, like, wow, we are really worried about violence because some of these people are very violent. They said this, like, over and over. They were aware. And Trump wanted to go basically to the riot with the violent people. And he assaulted a Secret Service member to try to get there. He got into a physical altercation with his protection. Yeah. We covered this early on. We haven't had much chance to talk about it because we've been running through some of these people. We talked with Suraj Patel, talked with Cathy. But, like, Trump apparently threw his dinner at the wall, and they said, the detail that gets me is that there was ketchup dripping down the wall. Because, of course, Trump has probably eaten a fucking steak with ketchup. That's the thing that gets me, is that the Star Witness bothered to make sure to point out several times that this was a ketchup situation. So that's almost the worst part, right? The worst part is not the insurrection. The worst part is that Trump eats steak with ketchup, and that is truly unforgivable. Totally serious there. Trump as Prince Joffrey is honestly not a bad analogy. My favorite thing about the kid who played Prince Joffrey is that he doesn't act anymore. He said, like, this is my one role. I killed it here. I'm like, people hated me. I was so good at my job that I became a national figure of hate, so I must be a really good actor. Never gonna do anything better than that. I quit acting. Boom. Done. One role, go out on top. So, you know... That's my favorite. That kid, I think, is literally just doing like a. I want to look that up actually. This is the random shit we're looking at now. But hold on. Jack, I think his name is like Jack Gleason. Yeah, Irish actor. Hold on. Let me resize this screen. I had to bring it to a funny size for the. But yeah, this guy, this kid who played Prince Joffrey, Jack Gleason. I'm pretty sure he just quit acting. In 2012, Gleason indicated an intention to retire from acting and pursue an academic career. In 2014, yeah, he just wanted to go to school. He wanted to, like, go to graduate school rather than, like, be a world famous actor. Like, what a baller. What a baller. I guess he's no longer doing academia, but yeah. What a fucking baller to just be like, you know what, I don't care. I could be a world famous actor. I could parlay this into big movies, but yeah, you know, Texas Hokies. It's interesting. It's interesting that somebody's claiming the Secret Service members dispute this, blah blah blah. But like, look, it's easy to have an anonymous report. Oh, I have an anonymous report. The Secret Service slightly disputes, like. This person testified in front of Congress. I'm gonna take the person who testified in front of Congress under oath publicly more seriously than I'm gonna take the anonymous report. You know what I mean? Like, testifying under oath is a big deal. That person came off. I'm sorry, I forget her name. The woman, the aide, came off as very credible to me. And it's very easy for, oh, well, she said he put his hand across, but really he put his hand forward. Like, you can take something and be like, well, it didn't happen that way. It's very, just quibble with the wording. But, like, screw that, you know. So, I'm gonna believe her until there's a reason not to, because again, this person is not. Let me pull up her name, so I'm not just saying this person. January 6th hearings. What's her name again? Four takeaways. What is this lady's name? She's an aide to Mark Meadows. Cassidy Hutchinson. I am no longer calling her that person. Sure, her name is Cassidy. Cassidy Hutchinson, we should be clear, is not a resistance lib. Cassidy Hutchinson is a through and through Republican operative who worked in the Trump administration for a while. She was bought in. She is a straight up Republican, a Trump Republican even for a while. And she, the fact that she has turned on them and is testifying is a big deal. Yeah, she worked for Ted Cruz. This person is not. The fact that she's going after them and basically spilling the beans makes her intensely credible. It makes her incredibly believable. So I choose to believe her because why would you set your own? These are all the people she knows, the people who would give her jobs, the people she's been with for years. Why would she set them on fire? So, I think it's incredibly brave what she did. And we need more people who are like this. More people who, even if we disagree with them politically, have the courage to stand up like this. So I do want to say thank you to all the people who donated and did Twitch Primes and all that during the thing. I didn't really get a chance to say thank you during the moment, but I did notice all of you guys. I noticed when the bits came in and the Twitch Primes and all that. So thank you. Very, very much appreciated. Wanted to let you know that even though I was in the middle of the interviews and I didn't get a chance to recognize you, I saw all of you guys and very much appreciated. So one thing that's really fun is Relay is Reckless. Relay is Reckless donated several times here, and Relay's probably going to get to choose the next emoji. If you don't watch often, the way we do it is that the number one donator or the number one bits person or whoever for each month gets to choose the next month's emoji. Mike added a seal last time. I think Tobin added the Jeremiah Globehead. So we'll see how that goes, man. The other thing that I want to check is primary results, because I wonder if any of those have come in. So I wonder what's a good site to go? Is 538 covering the primaries right now? They are. Update. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Updated 3 seconds ago. That's how I need my news feeds is updating every 3 seconds. And we start off with some awful news. Lauren Boebert is projected to win her re-election primary. Well, shit. Terrible news, but this is one of the things that I wanted to cover because we've got primaries in New York, in Colorado, and several other places, I think. So Trump endorsed 6 people on the ballot tonight. Let's read what's going on. Still to come, incumbents Mary Miller. Let's see. So Trump endorsed candidates are winning or won basically all the races he endorsed. He endorsed 6 people, and they look like they're all going to win. Now, I don't think that's a
Farron J cheered. X1000. You mean I can make you add a ContraPoints emoji?
Farron, I think you can. That the rules are the rules, and look, ContraPoints is oh shit, am I bleeding? I have blood going on here. Shit, hold on. Let me get back to that. I think I opened up a cut from shaving on my 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm not dying. I hope. Counterpoint. I am dying. No. I just opened, I don't know how, but I got a cut on my, a cut that I had from shaving just reopened live on stream. Who's been sticking needles in Jeremiah's voodoo? Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Damn you, facial hair. Look, what I was saying to Farron is, I don't care if you're a socialist. Everybody gets to participate in the neoliberal tradition of buying your way to what you want. What's more neoliberal than that? The market has decided, you know. So, apparently those diplomacy tournaments pay well. Ah. But, yeah. No. The market decides. So, if anybody doesn't want there to be a ContraPoints emoji, the mark to beat is 1,200 bits right now, so there you go. We'll see what the market says. The free market decides our fate here. All right, so a bunch of Trump candidates have won. That kind of sucks, but it's not super surprising because he only endorsed 6 people, and frankly, all of these people were like kind of should have won. I think. Like, I don't think any of these are like shockers. Like, oh my gosh, this person pulled a shock, whatever. I think these are like Mike Lee in Utah. Like, no shit, he's winning 80% of the vote. Like, brave stand you took there to endorse a guy who would get 80% of the vote. So this is not a big deal. ABC News is projecting that Doug Lamborn has held off a primary challenge. I think Dave Williams is a crazy person. I think Dave Williams was like a super crazy person, but I'm not 100% sure. If Tobin's in the chat, Tobin, can you tell me? What's going on, Julio? However we pronounce it. McMuffin in Utah. Is McMuffin not... McMuffin was, Mike Lee, 80% of the vote. Good work, McMuffin. If I search McMuffin, Utah... I wonder, will that actually bring him up? Yes, it does. Look at this. Look at this. If you search McMuffin, Utah. I am so immature. That shouldn't make me laugh, but it does. Oh man, I need to screen. You know what? Honestly, I really want to screen cap this for Twitter before anybody else does. This is what we're doing now. Hold on. Sorry, watching me tweet this, but. It's funny as shit to me. Oh my god. This is what's happening right now. I can't believe that actually worked. I can't believe that actually worked. Okay, anyways, that's happening. Let's go back to actual news. Okay. There's an Oklahoma politician whose first name is Mark Wayne. One word? What the shit? I feel like that should be illegal. Mark Wayne. Like, Jim Bob, one word. I feel like I knew somebody who, actually, you want to know the craziest name I've ever heard? Because when you grow up in the South, I grew up in Georgia, you end up with a lot of stories about names, right? Like, crazy Southern names. I have a story that I feel like can top all these things. Better than Jim Bob, better than Mark Wayne. And I can even verify that this is a real person. Because again, everybody's got a story about names, but a lot of them are fake. If you've ever heard the Orangelo Lamangelo, which some black lady named her kids Orange Jello and Lemon Jello, that one's fake. Nobody's ever found that. That's not a real thing. It's a common urban myth. This one, I can promise you is real because my dad went to high school with him and I've seen the shit. I've seen the actual yearbook. This person's name was Beaver Beavers. This is, the parents must be insane, but it was literally Beaver Beavers. The full legal name. He actually became a criminal later in life, probably because of his name, but I think we can actually Google him. Yes! It fucking auto-completes. It auto-completes on Google. This is a real person. The unfortunate story of Beaver Beavers. This is a real person. My dad went to high school with this dude. Real guy. That is the most Southern name of all time. Beaver Beavers. Sorry, I got on a tangent there because somebody started talking about Mark Wayne, and it makes me think about Southern names and things like that. Oh yeah, and Arjad, the Protestant names, not just Protestant. We should note this is specifically like Puritan names from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. It's like they would name their things like temperance for the sake of the Lord, one word, that's your name. Or like, you know, chastity is a virtue, is it one word is the name. Like crazy stuff. Animated tabby emoji. Farron J, if you are still in the lead at the end of the stream, we can have an animated tabby. We will see how it goes. But anyway, sorry, I will get away from Beef Beaver Beavers, but this is the craziest name of all time. I literally think he probably ended up becoming a criminal because his name was Beef Beaver Beavers. But this guy went to my high school. I went to the high school that guy went to. I went to the same high school as my dad went to. Grew up in the same town. Oh, good Lord. All right. What else is going on? We've got a bunch of Senate things in Colorado. So apparently in Colorado, the more moderate-ish, I don't think either one of them is real moderate, but more moderate-ish Republican beat the crazy Republican in the Senate race, the Senate primary. So Michael Bennet might actually have a race there. Let's see. Antonio Delgado is winning the primary. There's not a lot of competitive ones, to be honest. What else have we got going on? Any big news? And somebody did ask something a second ago. Are you left neoliberal or right neoliberal? I mean, I think I wouldn't call myself a right neoliberal or a left neoliberal. I kind of find myself in the middle of those two things, maybe. I'm just center neoliberal, I guess. Like, there are left neoliberals, I think, who are basically social democrats, and I am not one of those. I'm not a social democrat. There are right neoliberals who are very close to just being libertarians, and I am not that close to being a libertarian. That's kind of how I conceptualize it. Like, left neoliberal is a fuzzy boundary with social democrat. You can work with social democrats even when you disagree with them. Right neoliberal is fuzzy boundary with like libertarian-ish. And again, somebody you can work with even if you don't disagree with, agree with them on everything. I wouldn't call myself particularly close to being a libertarian or close to being a social democrat. I'm just kind of in the middle. Who would I call left neoliberal? I don't know. Somebody like the thing is, I'm thinking of like online personalities. Like honestly, I think Matt Iglesias is kind of left neoliberal-ish in that, if you asked him to vote for like Medicare for all, he probably would. He's very, very like globe-pilled on things like immigration and housing and trade and things like that. But his version of the welfare state that he would put in place is probably bigger than the one I would put in place. So like Matt Iglesias might be a good. Ezra Klein is another one. Noah Smith. I think a lot of the prominent like center-left white male take-havers, your Matts and your Ezras and your Noahs, they're all kind of left neoliberal or like social democrat leaning. Your right neoliberals would be somebody more like Scott Lincecum, who is a little more inherently skeptical of the welfare state, but not against it entirely. Like when I talk with Scott about this, he's not completely against the welfare state. He's just more skeptical of it. He definitely would not be voting for Medicare for all. But again, he would be in total agreement with the Ezra, Matt, Noah, whatever, on things on, again, immigration, housing, police reform, free trade, occupational licensing, drug legalization. Like there's so much area of agreement, and then they would just disagree about like how big is your welfare state kind of thing. So Kowalski talking about particulate matter. I will always take a second to talk about particulate matter. PM 2.5 is dangerous, people. Particulate matter in the air, little tiny particles. They call PM 2.5 particulate matter of like 2.5 micron in size or whatever. That shit is created by smoke. It is created by cigarettes. It is created by cars. It is horrible for your health. Get an air filtration system, yo. I've got one down here. Hold on. We're doing this. You see that, hold on. That thing, that little tube down there? Past the microphone, down on the ground. That's like a supercharged, awesome air filtration thing. I keep that in my home at all times. And look, I live in a one-bedroom apartment in New York. I have 2 of those in my one-bedroom apartment. What I'm telling you, you read the research on particulate matter and you get freaked out because the effect sizes of this shit are huge. After reading like 10 papers on particulate matter, my reaction was, I need 2 of these shits, these air filtration systems, in my one-bedroom apartment. So I'm always happy to do that. Wildfires are bad. I'm going to take the brave stand of saying I am not in favor of wildfires. I am against wildfires. I'm against that sort of thing. But so yeah, I don't know. I was planning to cover more, do more on like the primaries because again, primaries in a lot of states tonight. But I kind of don't. I kind of don't think there's been anything interesting. I think it's been like a lot of very like expected things are happening. There's not a lot of like big storylines here. Pam Anderson, whoa. I don't think it's that Pam Anderson. Okay, so this is actually a big deal. The Associated Press is reporting Pam Anderson is projected to win the Republican nomination for Secretary of State in Colorado. This means that someone who accepts the legitimacy of the 2020 election is guaranteed to administer the 2024 election in the state. Apparently, Anderson was running against one of those psychopaths who does not accept the legitimacy of the election. This is a big problem, by the way. This is not just in Colorado, but everywhere. Like, there are people running for Secretary of State who say the 2020 election was stolen, who are basically plotting. It's funny because they are the ones trying to steal the election. They're like, it's this weird Uno reversal where they try to steal an election and their justification for stealing the election is, no, you're stealing the election. It's fucking bizarre. But I'm glad that at least in Colorado it's not happening, but this is going to happen in at least one state. And like, I don't know. Yeah, controlled fires are good. Controlled fires are fine. I get it, guys. I get it. We're all good. Yeah. Okay, so what else have we got? I don't think there's any big stories coming out of this. Also, it's too bad Tobin isn't here, because this is like the most... This is the most,
SW337_1 gave us a bailout.
S-Dubs, thank you for the bailout. Appreciate you. Wait, Giuliani won the Republican primary for New York governor? Is that real? New York... The thing is, I feel like you might be trolling me, but that's also like the Republican Party is insane enough that I can't discount that. New York primary elections 2022. See who won. You know what else I need to do?
Correct. They are open. There are now just under 15.
Shut up. Autoplayed videos. Oh, Andrew Giuliani. Jesus Christ. I thought you were talking about Rudy Giuliani. Won the and honestly, I would have believed you. I would have believed you. Holy shit. Did he actually win? Kathy Hochul, big win, easy win. Oh no, Giuliani came in second. I thought you meant actual Rudy Giuliani, which again, the Republican Party is insane enough that I would have accepted that. Apparently 38% reporting. I want to go and see whether our friend Denny Salas won. Denny Salas is a guy that I have been cheering for personally in a state assembly race in New York. He is actually a member of the Neoliberal Project. He's running for state assembly. I want to see if he won his primary. New York State Assembly primary elections. Let me see if we can find... yeah, let's see if we can find this. Control F, Salas. I hope Salas. Oh no, Grace Lee did have way more money than anybody else. That sucks. Oh. I'm sorry. Denny. I really hoped it was gonna work out. Well, there's always next time. I think Denny has a bright future still. So, damn, I really like Denny. Denny's absolutely one of us. He's an ally. Grace Lee came into that race with a shitload more money than anybody else, though. So he did have a tough fight, I think. Yeah, it's a little dispiriting. I was hoping the fight would be a little bit better than this, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You live and you learn. Look, I think we're still in the very embryonic phases here of getting people to run for office. It took a long time for this to happen for whatchamacallit, for like the DSA. When the DSA started trying to run people for office, they almost always lost, and they would only get somebody like, oh, we'll get like one socialist on like a city council somewhere. But 20 years later, now they've got a bunch of people in city councils and in Congress and in all sorts of stuff. We're still in like year one of having anybody run for anything. So, you know, I think it's a victory just to have our members running for office whatsoever. So, oh well. I was hoping that the showing would be a little bit better than that, but you can only do what you can do. So, enough of this nonsense. Any other primary stories I should be looking out for? Any other primary like things that are happening other than I don't know. I'm wondering if there's anything that Sean Caston won, I think. That's good. Just kind of scrolling here. It looks like, so there were a lot of places in Colorado where Democrats were like donating to like super crazy ass Republicans in the hopes that it would hurt the Republican Party in the general. I feel like that's a real kind of a terrible strategy, to be honest. Don't support insane people, I think, is just a good baseline. I think that whether you think it's strategically a great idea or not, just don't support insane people. Yeah. And Marcos, you're right. A candidate for Congress did just call themselves neoliberal on our stream, so let's see, we got any new updates? 15 new posts. We'll spend a little bit more time here, and then I don't know, we might just chill out after this. It's been a crazy week, man. It's been an incredibly eventful week with the fucking stuff that's going on, January 6th and all the revelations, and Roe v. Wade, and all the other court cases too. All right. It's fun. I have no idea what all these names are. Picao and Grasso. I feel like I should like pretend like, oh yes, Picao, of course, naturally beating Grasso, and there's obvious implications here. When I don't know who these people are. Who the hell is Picao and Grasso? I don't know. Should I know who these people are? Pansing Brooks. That's a name. Looking for any names that I actually recognize. Nikki Budzinski, a former Biden staffer, is going to win in Illinois' 13th district, so will be competitive. Okay. Ganal leads Lopez. Again, who are these people? Ganal leads Lopez. This is Colorado governor. Lee Zeldin has about a 15-point lead for... I mean, this doesn't matter. Yeah. This is the Republican primary for governor in New York is one of those, like... It's interesting, maybe, but, like, it doesn't matter because they're not going to win. What do I think of the upcoming Supreme Court EPA ruling? I mean, I don't want to overreact to it too much before it actually comes out, because we don't actually know what they're going to do. But it certainly seems like it has the potential to be really, really bad. It could be a really, really, really bad ruling. So Look up Pamela Price, Alameda County District Attorney at San Francisco 2.0. I don't know. Based Ladu, do I like 9-inch nails? Yeah, they're alright. With Newman's projected loss to Kasten, it's a good time to check in with tonight's progressive-backed candidates. So, progressive... So these are candidates that are endorsed by AOC, Indivisible, Justice Dems, Our Revolution. Right? See, this is another problem. It's like, with the conservatives, you can just say Trump endorsed. There's like 15 of these fucking things that they're having to track. Let's see. So they've got more losses than they have wins at this point. They're losing 5, and they're potentially winning 3. So, progressives are not as popular as they thought. Interesting. Raja Krishnamurthy, Justin Ahmed. This is one we've actually had Krishnamurthy on the Neoliberal podcast. Very interesting. I think Krishnamurthy is one of the new Dems as well. So I'm happy for new Dems to not get primaried. So whoever this guy is, Junaid Ahmed, I am glad that you... Or who is it? Yeah. Yeah, happy for Krishnamurthy, though. Seems like a good guy. We had Krishnamurthy on to talk about organ policy. Krishnamurthy has a very particular focus where he loves to talk about organ policy. Obviously, me being who I am, having done what I've done, I love to talk about organ policy. So we got together and we talked about organ donation. And it's funny, there's a lot of stuff like this. There's a lot of stuff like this in Congress where beyond the national issues, everybody wants to fight about immigration, fight about Medicare, fight about Ukraine policy, fight about this and that and then blah, blah, blah. But most Congress people have a couple issues where they are like really, really passionate, intensely passionate about some tiny issue that nobody else cares about. Nobody gives a shit about this issue, and the congressperson just works like day and night to try to pass something on, boll weevil policy, or I don't know, like. And for Krishnamurthy, that thing is organ procurement organizations. Organ procurement organizations are these things that basically decide how organs get distributed and who gets a when people die, there's a deceased donor organ, how does it actually get to a new person, help them stay alive. That's what OPOs do, organ procurement organizations, and they're terrible, they're mismanaged like crazy, they don't do their jobs well at all, and Raja Krishnamurthy is trying to fix it, and nobody else in Congress gives a shit. So it's interesting when you dig into... That's one of the most interesting things about Congress people, frankly, is not how hard are they fighting for Medicare for... Because look, like, everybody's got a healthcare opinion. You're not unique. It doesn't make you interesting to have an opinion on healthcare. It doesn't make you interesting to have an opinion on, like, the big fight. It's important. Healthcare is important. It's important that everybody has an opinion on Roe v. Wade or whatever. But it's not actually the most interesting thing. The most fascinating thing about these Congress critters is that they all have these little tiny passionate areas. So yeah, I don't know. How do I think the decline of bilingualism in Brussels should be addressed? I think that Brussels should be put under American administration, become the 51st state, and we enforce English as the national language. Just to punish both sides. Just to punish the Flemish and the Walloons. We make you both talk in English forever. That's what you get for fighting. You Belgians. The Belgians have had long enough to figure out their own issues, and since they can't, I think it's time for some freedom. I think America needs to invade and give the Belgians a taste of what real freedom tastes like. So, that's my take. A furry question? I don't know. Will Puerto Rico become a state? Probably not. Should it become a state? If they want to, yes. Yeah, and if you want to be really cruel to Belgium, make them speak Australian English. We need a Congress critter who wants to grant Carly Rae Jepsen U.S. citizenship. Absolutely. She should be a global citizen of the world. She lives in Los Angeles, so she is an immigrant. Immigration policy is to create more Carly Rae Jepsons. That's my ideology. So, what's it looking like for Liz Cheney for re-election? I don't know. Can I Google that? Liz Cheney primary. Do we have any results? These are all from like 1 day ago, so I don't know if there's any. I don't know if there's any updates on this. Let me search Twitter. Just to see, because Twitter has sometimes got the most. Oh, I don't think this is today. I think that also beautiful Trump account here. Thank you for that Trump account. I don't think Liz Cheney's primary is today. I think it's later. Can we make a furry affiliate for the Neoliberal Project? No. There. That's an answer. No is an answer. Angelina Jolie is a Cambodian citizen. Sure. Why not? All right. So, anything else? Any other? I'm glad Rajana Krishnamurthy is winning his primary. Lee Zeldin is going to win the consolation prize that nobody cares about in New York. Kirkmeyer. God, there's so many. This just helps you. The Associated Press has called the Democratic primary for Representative Raja Krishnamurthy excellent. He's leading 72% to 28%. It's unclear which Republican Krishnamurthy will face, but this is a pretty solidly Democratic district. What is Krishnamurthy in? He's in Illinois, but they said it was. Hold on. Krishnamurthy is in the 8th district. So which one of these is 8th? Illinois is 8th district. It's kind of this suburban Chicago. It's not one of these core Chicago ones, but it's like suburban. D+12. Yeah. See, these inner city Chicago ones. D+70, D+44, D+41. You know, yeah. These are crazy. Krishnamurthy's D+12, but that's unless something really, really bad happens. Hold on, let me switch it here. You can see. See, it's like this. The 8th is this. Can you see that pop up? Is that pop up showing for you guys? The 8th right here is this like suburban one, D+12. So just unless something terrible happens, where the Democrats have the worst midterm election of all time, he should be fine. Because he's both D+12 district and he's reasonably popular incumbent. He should be okay. So, Jeremiah, why do I think there's such an overlap between neolibs and effective altruists? I don't know. I think part of it is that when we started the neoliberal project, one of like the values that we carted over was kind of this idea of like evidence-based policy, that it matters what your outcome of your policy is, not just whether or not are you trying to do good in the world, are you morally correct, but more generally than that, is it working? Does the evidence actually support that the outcome is what you want it to be? This was a big, kind of meme saying for when we started the neoliberal subreddit and the Twitter account, evidence-based policy. And so I think that, lines up really nicely with the ideas of effective altruism, that you should care about outcomes, that you should try to maximize those outcomes as best you can. I also think we're pulling, we pulled from a very wonky economics crowd when we got started, and that, again, overlaps with effective altruism, I think. So, I don't know. It's all good. Oh, man. What else is going on in the world tonight, guys? What else is going on? For anybody who's hanging out, I do want to make sure anybody knows who wants to join the project. If you want to become a member, through a link in chat, neoliberalproject.org/join. Pigley, thanks for coming in. Thanks for chatting. Marie Newman lost in Illinois. What's the context? Who is Marie Newman? Again, I feel bad, but there's so many races around the country, like congressional races, Senate primaries, Secretary of State primaries, state assembly stuff. Like, I don't know. There's so much of this that I'm like just lost. Oh yes, Marie Newman. Of course, she's lost, and this has very big implications for the political scene, and we'll have to keep those implications in mind. Like I don't know. Kasten's progressive opponent. Well, I guess I'm glad that Kasten. I knew he was facing a primary challenge. So I'm glad that that he is not going to be tossed out of Congress. I think we like Kasten, right? Hopefully we like Kasten. I'm trying to remember if I'm thinking about the right Kasten, but I think we are. Yeah. Kasten's in the New Dems. There's so many of these Congress people. Sometimes you get lost. I'm gonna be real. The Chicago. That's how I remember him. The Chicago chapter is out there canvassing for him. And she's a sitting congressperson, ran in another district. That's tough, man. It's like what's happening with Nadler and Maloney. So good for Kasten. Cheers to you, sir. I've got this beautiful Gold Peak tea. This is like the best sweet tea I've found in New York bodegas, and it's like 0 calorie too. I would love to drink real Southern sweet tea because, again, I grew up in the South, but I also am trying not to get diabetes. So, no offense to all my friends out there with diabetes, but I would prefer not to join the ranks of the diabetic. And Southern sweet tea will get you there in a hurry. Hoo boy, let me tell you. So, man. I don't know, man. I hope you guys are holding up okay out there. It's been a depressing week, honestly. I feel like there's a lot of people who probably need some reassurances, who feel like shit's in a dark place, but just know, like, I don't know. Shit feels really bad right now, but, like, the future is still totally up in the air. We can make it what we want to make it, so don't feel too bad. If you're feeling discouraged, I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to feel discouraged, but I'm going to tell you you won't feel like that forever, We'll snap out of this. We'll get to work. We'll do what we can. We'll make the world a better place, a little bit at a time. It's the only thing you can do, Take a little bit to be a little discouraged, and then get back to it. I don't know. So, do your best Southern accent. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I don't like trying to do the Southern accent on purpose. Like, yeah, I do it sometimes, but I didn't really grow up with a Southern accent. And it's, I don't know. It is what it is. I feel like it's part of growing up in the suburbs. Like, it's more important that you grow up in the suburbs, because the suburbs of everywhere are the same. It's my favorite flavor of ice cream, pistachio. My wife's favorite flavor, maybe second favorite flavor, is pistachio. So, I don't know. Not mine, though. I do have some really good pistachio liqueur that I got from Italy. Do I know if the New Dems have a bill or are working on a bill to address the U.S. capacity issue? Yes. Let me actually pull that up. There's a great bill that the New Dems are working on. Let me pull this up for you. 1 second. So, New Dem inflation bill. So, this is what is in the New Dem inflation bill, and I think this really doubles as a capacity bill. Because look, if you want to fight inflation, there's only 2 ways to fight inflation. Inflation is what happens when there's too few dollars chasing not enough things. So you can either reduce the number of dollars, or you can increase the number of things. The Fed can either lower demand, or you can increase supply. If you've got too much demand chasing too little supply, that leads to inflation. That's how economics works. And you can either lower the demand, inflation will go down, or you can increase the supply. The New Dems have an inflation plan but it's really a supply increasing plan. And I think it's amazing. It's an incredible plan. The CTC is kind of unrelated, honestly, but it's great, and I love the CTC for separate reasons. So the CTC is good, doesn't really fight inflation, but whatever. But in addition to that, reduce occupational licensing laws so we can have more people working. We can have more barbers, more cosmetologists, more paralegals, more nurse practitioners doing more things, more florists. Just occupational licensing is insane in this country, and we should be making it less onerous. It will increase the number of people able to do stuff, especially in things like childcare. Like, there's occupational licensing requirements in childcare that are so ridiculous that, like, we literally don't have enough qualified workers for childcare. Not because it's that hard to take care of a child, but because we require so fucking much to do it. So this is a really good deal. This will actually increase supply, and it will make a difference. Suspending tariffs will make immediately a difference. It's not going to solve inflation, but if you lower tariffs, if you got rid of the Trump tariffs, you would lower inflation by about 0.5%. You know, if it would go from 8.5 to 8. And, like, look, there's not a lot of things that can just instantly kill inflation by even a little bit. This is a big deal. You might say, oh, it's just 0.5 point. That's a big deal. 0.5 point is a big deal because you can do it just like that. It's so simple. And if you lower tariffs even more, that 0.5% number, by the way, is only for getting rid of the Trump tariffs. If you lower the regular tariffs that we just have for God knows what reason to begin with, you could get even more. You could probably get 1 or 2 points. So that's a great idea. Letting more immigrants in, again, increasing supply, increasing labor supply. They also increase labor demand as well, but the immigrants are important because specifically there are, like, specific industries that are having shortages. Meat packing plants, logistics, trucking, port worker, like there's things that are having big issues, and letting more immigrants in would help a lot of these specifically constrained industries. So again, increase supply, good idea. And it's in that whole build more capacity. The whole idea of building more capacity means less occupational licensing laws, more people, more immigrants, more housing. All of this is in the new dim inflation plan. Reducing the zoning, more immigrants, fewer occupational licensing laws. This is a really, really good plan. So that's my thing there. There's an interesting question from Joey Hug. Joey Hug says, neoliberal project. I have the option to move my family back to Germany in a few years, and it's looking more attractive by the day. Can you come up with 3 good reasons not to do that permanently and stay in the U.S.? And yeah, so number 1 is that your children will be wealthier if they're in the U.S. I think this is underrated by Europeans. The United States is much wealthier than Europe. Materially, it is much wealthier. Let me see if I can find this, actually, because I think this is something we've been talking about on Twitter. Why not move to Europe? Tweet. Like, there's this whole thing of... there was some tweet. It was like, move to Europe, and it started good discussions. Yeah, here we go. So this is like, again, GDP per capita. Like, you can get rid of Ireland off the list because Ireland is a tax haven. It's an artificial construct. The rich, like, let's look at Germany. Where is Germany on this list? Because you see all the U.S. states. North Dakota's rich. Massachusetts, New York, Delaware, Nebraska. Finally, we get to Switzerland, which is probably the genuinely richest European country. All of these states are, like, before anything. Where is Germany on this list? Germany would be like the 49th or whatever state. Germany would not even be in the top 35 states in terms of how wealthy it is compared to the U.S. The U.S. as a whole is just much, much wealthier than almost anybody in Europe. And I think this point is underrated by Europeans. It really, really is. And people say things like, oh, well, what about if you account for health care? What if you account for this? What if you account for that? No, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Even if you account for the fact that healthcare is free or whatever, the U.S. is still much wealthier. It just is. You know, I know people who have been offered jobs in like France because they speak French, and they would have had to take a 40% pay cut. I know people who've been offered jobs in Germany who literally they make 3 times as much in America. If you are upper middle class or upper middle class, you will I promise you will make more money in America. So that's number one. Number two is that, frankly, I think, I don't know exactly how this applies to Germans, but I think the U.S. is a more racially diverse and racially tolerant society than Europe. And again, Europeans kind of get mad about this sometimes. They don't like to acknowledge this, but racism in Europe is a different beast than racism in America. America has its issues with race, certainly, but America addresses our issues with race very openly, and we have these fights in public. European racism is more like just straight up they will be racist, just I don't know, vocally. Immigrants are destroying our society, and I think we should kill them all, kind of shit. Like, maybe I'm overplaying that a little bit, but when the only place in my, I'll say, again, I don't know how this specifically applies to Germany, but the only places in my life ever that I've found genuine anti-Semitism, like that I've actually noticed, has been in Europe. In the UK, I heard people on the street talking about how the Jews were doing something. In France, I heard the same shit. Like, I heard somebody get called a Jew in France. Like, it was real fucking weird. And, like, I lived in the South. I never heard any of that shit in the South. You know? So, I think Europe is basically a more racist place. And less, has more problems with welcoming immigrants. America's more racially diverse and tolerant. That would be my second reason. The third reason is that the food is better in America. German food is okay, but like you're gonna get better food in a big American city than anywhere else. So, university system for your kids will be better in America. America has the best university system in the world by 1,000 miles. Not even close. So, I don't know. Anyways, that's my anti-European rant. Love you, Europeans. Still love Europe. Travel to Europe all the time, but, it is what it is. Not to say that Germany is like a bad country or anything, Ich kann ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen. Nur ein bisschen. Ich habe Deutsch in der Schule gelernt. Aber ich habe alle vergessen. So, I could speak just a little bit of German. I took German for, in die Schule, in the school, for a few years, a little bit in high school and a little bit in college, but it's been 12 years since I had a German class, so I can only remember a few things. One of the things I can remember is I know how to say Ich habe Deutsch in der Schule gelernt, aber ich habe alle vergessen, so that I can communicate I speak a little German, but don't actually ask me to speak German because I'll embarrass myself, because that's what it is. I can kind of get a few things, but if I actually have to try, it'll be embarrassing. It will not work. So, that is what it is. I feel dumb for having chosen German in high school, honestly, because it's not a very useful for an American. It's not a very useful language, right? It's not a very useful language for me to learn. The reason I did it was what the Spanish teacher was a huge asshole. She just had this reputation for being awful. And so most people would take either, some people wanted to learn Spanish. They were being practical, so they would take Spanish. But she was an asshole. So they would either take French or Latin or German. My high school offered 4 languages. You had to take one. The German teacher, on the other hand, she had a reputation for being awesome. She was fun. You would sing songs in class. The class would just be singing songs in German. She basically was known as an easy A. You just get an easy grade, perfect score without even trying. So I took German because I wanted an easy class. So that was the length of why I did that. But yeah, so there you go. I love the German people. I have been to Germany once. I went to Berlin and Hamburg. Liked Hamburg a lot more. Berlin's obviously like a big city. It's a cool city, but like I felt like Hamburg had more charm. Hamburg was a little like cooler to visit, I feel like. Went to there's this place called Miniatur Wunderland in Hamburg, which is miniature Wonderland, but in German, pronounced like Wunderland. And it's this like crazy place where it's like they have let me pull up a picture. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I might as well pull up a picture. Jeremy, you went to the Miniatur Wunderland? Can I remember how to spell this? Miniatur Wunder. I do remember how to spell it. Excellent. And it's like this like they just have all this like insanely detailed stuff. Like just I'm telling these things are huge. They're tiny, but they're huge. And that like they will make like a scale replication of Hamburg, and it's like incredibly expansive. Like they just have rooms and rooms and giant rooms filled with this stuff. So actually weirdly impressive, like just giant miniature recreations, which I realize is an oxymoron, but yeah, good stuff. You need a certain level of coolness to visit Berlin, or they kick. I mean, the thing that I found most impressive about Berlin was not the coolness, but like the history. Like in Berlin, you can go to the. It's depressing, but you can go to the kind of some of the Holocaust memorial stuff, the Jewish Museum. You can go to the Cold War stuff. You can go to the DDR Museum. Let me show you this. The DDR Museum. So the DDR was the basically East Germany. What was it, like Deutsches Demokratische Republik or something? I don't know. Yeah, Deutsche Demokratische Republik. And this is basically East Germany, communist East Germany. And they have like crazy displays in here about like what it was like to live under the communist regime. One of the coolest things about going to this museum, and look, some of it was pro-DDR. I don't think it was pro-DDR. It was more like, here's how regular people lived. And the thing is, regular people mostly just muddled on through, right? Regular people anywhere can find ways to survive. But there's a whole section about, like, here's what the Stasi would do to you. Here's what they had sections about, here's what the surveillance state was like. They also had sections where they kind of admitted how shitty everything was. They have a car there. There's a famous car called a Traube, I think. Traube car I probably need to put in because it looks like there's a soda too. These cars, I promise you, are like the most incredible horseshit cars of all time. Let me see if I can pull up a bigger picture. Trabant. Come on. So these cars, they have a Traube. These were the East German cars. They were produced on the other side of the Iron Curtain. These cars, Traube, they were the most incredible horseshit cars of all time. You have one there, and when you open the door, you can feel the door only weighs like 2 pounds because it's made out of cardboard. And I'm not saying that as like an analogy. The body of the car door is literally made of cardboard. Like, it's fucking what you can get in this car and like feel how shitty it was. It was like, it's genuinely. I've sat in one of those cars at the museum. They let you get in, literally opening the door to the car, just opening the car door. You feel like you're going to break it. I felt like I'm a 6'2" guy. I'm not actually that strong, but I'm kind of big. Just opening the door gently, I felt like I was going to break the car. Like I felt like I could have ripped the door off its hinges. Not as me saying that I am a strong person, but just like trying to communicate how horrible this car was. So anyway, in Berlin, that's all the stuff that that's the stuff that I found fascinating was explanations of why actually Nazis are bad and why actually communism is bad. I don't know if you needed an explanation, but you can go get it in Berlin. So, that's That's the Berlin trip I took. Not so much the artsy Berlin scene, but anything else. Well, all right, guys. I think we're going to call it tonight. We have one thing to do before we go. We need a moment of Zen. If anybody has any nominations for the moment of Zen, we're taking them now. If you are unfamiliar with that concept, every time we end stream, we always try to end stream with something positive. Some kind of positive video we can all watch together. It can be funny, it can be uplifting, it can be a meme, but we always end stream on a particular video of some kind. We want to put positive energy out into the world. So it's time for Moment of Zen. No bad tweets tonight. We've been going for I don't know, 3.5 hours already. So we'll do bad tweets next week. We stream every week almost on Tuesday nights. So make sure you join us again next week. Any candidates for Moment of Zen? If not, I can find one on my own. But we'll let me know if you got any candidates. Little elephant gets scared by the wind. Let's see what we've got here. Is this going? It's the r/aw. If you ever want to see like weaponized cuteness, this subreddit r/aw is like nuclear grade cute. Like it's almost illegal how cute this shit is here. Is this going? I feel it's funny. That's such a human response, or maybe it's not even. Maybe it's multi-species, but like get scared, run to mom kind of thing. Joey Hug has a candidate. What are we watching here? All right, that's too bizarre for me. That's I can't do 3 minutes of that weird cat noise. That cat noise is weird. All right, I think we'll just go with the baby elephant video. I might get something better next week, but short and sweet. Good night, everybody. Glad to have you guys. If you're interested in joining the project, one more link in the thing. You can go to neoliberalproject.org/join. We're streaming every Tuesday night. We will see you guys soon. Catch you next time.